Go on, sit down. It'll take me an age. Yeah, I'll be fine. Yeah. Right. Okay. Now then, welcome to everyone this evening for this special meeting of the City Council. Tonight, this special meeting is to consider a recommendation for freedom of the city, the highest honour that we can bestow, proposed by the Constitutional Committee. So, first of all, I would like to call on Councillor David Wood. He's in his place to move the motion to confer the freedom of the city on Stevie Wonder, to be seconded by Councillor Keating. Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Okay, thank you very much, Sheriff, and welcome to your first meeting, chairing it. Okay. Stevie Wonder. He was born Stephen Hardaway Morris in 1950, where he was born 5 weeks premature, which caused the onset of his blindness. His first hit record in the USA, Fingertips, was in 1963, which was the date of the Martin Luther King I Have a Dream speech. Just to give you a bit of background on Stevie Wonder, he won 25 Grammys as well as other awards, but he is also noted for his work for political causes, and it's this I wish to concentrate on. In 2009, he was named United Nations Messenger of Peace, and in 2014, he was honoured with the Presidential Medal of Freedom by Barack Obama. He's been awarded honorary degrees by universities like Washington, Providence, Alabama, New Jersey, Ohio, Connecticut, and Michigan, as well as Newcastle, which is the only UK city to have honoured him in any way. Okay. In 2018, he joined Twitter, whatever that is, and his first tweet was a video honouring Martin Luther King entitled "The Dream Lives On," and he wrote the song "Happy Birthday" to Martin Luther King. A connection with Newcastle is through Newcastle-born music consultant Keith Harris, who acts as his manager, and so, excuse me, he's tried to create Martin Luther King Day in the USA and later arranged a meeting between representatives of Newcastle City and wanted to discuss the honorary degree for Martin Luther King by Newcastle University. The city of Newcastle is a city of sanctuary, and we should look to award Stevie Wonder with this prestigious honour. Lord Mayor, Sheriff, when I was in your position, my theme for the mayoralty for that year was to look at Dr. Martin Luther King, and the connection here is tremendous, and I've actually got great pride in moving that Stevie Wonder receives the freedom of the city of Newcastle upon Tyne, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wood. And to be seconded by Councillor Keating.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm pleased to do this. On the 15th of April 1965, which does seem rather a long time ago, I was in the City Hall for the Motown concert. I and 3 friends from St Cuthbert's, and we soon realised that we had an amazing crowd there. There were only 63 people, only 63, and umpteen chart-topping groups, etc., etc. This was a concert which failed to explode. And when they got to Wolverhampton, a couple of weeks later, they were down to 21 people. So the career of Stevie Wonder, who as I remember quite well, closed the first half of the concert, did not go well initially in Newcastle. Nor actually did Martin Luther King. The famous story is, of course, that someone at the council forgot to go and collect him, and he was left on the central station, not clear how to make the journey to what I presume was the old city hall. So here they are, linked together, which I think justifies the honour being given to Stevie Wonder. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Keating. Councillor Wood? No? We'll ask the question. I have no speakers listed. Does Council agree to confer the freedom of the city on Stevie Wonder? Is that agreed? Thank you all very much. We will then move to the ordinary meeting of the Council on today's date, and we'll move first of all to the apologies, item 1. John Softly.
Thank you, Chair. We'll have apologies from Councillors Ali, Forker, Huddart, Laverick, Mafemba, McCarthy, Morrissey, Habib Rahman, Karen Robinson, Shatwell, Hazel Stevenson.
Thank you.
And Councillor Avey.
Was that it? Right. Councillor Avey. Any others? No? Right. We'll move on to agenda item 2 then. Minutes of the previous meetings. Does Council agree to the minutes of the meeting held on the 1st of February 2023? They agreed? Thank you. We'll move on then to the official announcements. Now, I think all of us will know that there's been a significant event taking place recently. So on behalf of the City Council, I would like to congratulate Newcastle United for getting to a Wembley Cup final. Although the result was disappointing, the performance of the team and the fans was actually tremendous, and I'm sure we'll all look forward to the rest of the season. And I'm sure the Leader of the Council will want to say a few words about this. Is that right?
Sheriff, on behalf of the City Council, I wish to congratulate Newcastle United Football Club for reaching the final of the Carabao Cup on Sunday. This weekend we saw the real Northern powerhouse. This Northern powerhouse claimed and then cleaned Trafalgar Square. As a team, Newcastle were by far the better for most of the game. They turned up and battled every inch. The war flag showing at Wembley was awesome. Who could not have been moved by that? The display by the Geordie faithful across the capital was incredible and inspiring. The City Council believes that it is good for the city to have its football team playing football on a national stage at Wembley Stadium, and notes the success of the team under the management of Eddie Howe and wishes them continuing success for the remainder of the season of the Premier League. Thank you, Sheriff.
I'm sure those words are echoed by everyone here in the chamber, Leader of the Council. So if we move on to other official announcements, to celebrate International Women's Day, the Council's annual This Girl Can event will take place in the Exhibition Park at 6 p.m. next Wednesday, the 8th of March. And this is a free and very colourful event which celebrates women of all abilities, and all genders are welcome. Good luck to everyone taking part. Have a great night and enjoy the incredible atmosphere. And There is an open invitation to all councillors to attend tomorrow's meeting of the Climate Change Committee at 4 p.m. in the Pandon Room. Please attend if you can, as there are a range of interesting presentations on the agenda, which is published on the website of the Council. As tonight's council meeting determines the council tax and budget, may I remind members that the guillotine will not be applied until 9 p.m. this evening, rather than the usual 8:30 p.m. And I'm sure everyone in this chamber will want to join me in passing on our good wishes to the Lord Mayor. I'm sure she's devastated to be missing tonight's meeting, and I think we will all want to send her our best wishes. Now, lastly, in terms of official announcements, a request has been received to change the order of business this evening and to bring forward agenda item 15, which is the notice of motion defending the right to seek safety from war and persecution, to after agenda item 6, which is public question time. Is this moved and seconded? It's moved by Councillor Gray and seconded by Councillor Kilgour. Right. Does Council agree to change the order of items of business on the agenda?
Do we need a vote?
Yeah, I think on the basis of what I heard, we need to have a vote. So can you all log in, if possible, to go vote and record your vote on this? Okay, I'll come to take anyone who can't access Go Vote at the end. Okay, I think, has everyone finished voting who's able to? Would you put your hand up if you can't access? Councillor Stevenson, is that a yes or a no? Yes. It's a yes. Thank you. Next? Yes. Yes. Okay. Councillor McWilliams? Yes. Councillor Ali? Yes. Councillor Story? Yes. Councillor Ellis? Yes. Councillor Chisholm? Yes. Who's? Oh, George. Yes. I nearly missed you. It's impossible. Okay, and we take any other. I can see Councillor Keating's hand up. No. Right. Councillor Ferguson. Are there any other hands up on this side? No, can't see any more hands up. Okay, that motion is carried. So the agenda item 15 will be brought forward after agenda item 6. Now, this is going to be the last business meeting of the City Council before the local elections on the 4th of May. So I want to take the opportunity to thank all members for their service over the last few years, especially any of those members who may be standing down. Right. Okay, then we come to agenda item 4, which is correspondence. There is correspondence which has been circulated. Does Council agree to receive the correspondence from the Department of Work and Pensions, the Treasury and the Foreign Office. Is that agreed? Okay. Agenda item 5. No petitions have been received for this month's meeting. So, we come to agenda item 6, which is public question time. 3 questions were accepted for the agenda. So first, I will invite Joshua Thomas Clark to put his question to Council. And I will call on Councillor Byrne to respond.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Would the Count Member for a Connected Clean City please provide some clarity on the following points in regards to questions raised to us by local residents? Firstly, can you outline how much of local taxpayers' money has been spent so far on the Clean Air Zone that took effect last month, both on infrastructure and advertising to date? Can you further explain how much of taxpayers' money the Council forecasts to spend on this project over the next 2 years? Finally, in the interest of transparency, can you provide the outcomes of any mitigation taken in regard to feedback from public consultation, inquiries that took place regarding the CAS scheme, which helped shape this administration's intentions to push on with the project? We have been out and about across this great city, and the feedback from local residents is clear. This scheme is not wanted, not working, and not best for Newcastle. Thank you.
Councillor Byrne.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think the questioners have misunderstood how a clean air zone works. Newcastle and Gateshead councils are subject to government legal direction to improve air quality in the shortest possible time. And to support those affected by the introduction of the CAS, we have been awarded government money by the Joint Air Quality Unit to issue in the form of grants across the different vehicle categories. The implementation of the scheme is funded by the Clean Air Fund and Implementation Fund grants from central government and not from local council tax revenue. Details of the Clean Air Zone, which I recommend you read, given your misunderstanding, and its finances are available in the Cabinet Report, which is a publicly available document, and you can find it on our website, newcastle.gov.uk. I also have to disagree with you on the feedback from residents. The feedback I've had is that Newcastle residents do value clean air and the health benefits that it brings, and I have had no calls to further pollute our city. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Mr Clark, you have up to 1 minute to reply.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Thank you very much for your response, Councillor. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will now invite Ian Forster to put his question to Council, and Councillor Kemp to respond. Beg your pardon.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Can the leader of this council please be clear with his local residents tonight and take the opportunity to commit that his administration won't extend the use of the Clean Air Zone to private cars and vehicles within the next 24 months? And could he also please explain what he thinks the effect that will have on the poorest in our communities will be, that have to use cars to get into work? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Forster. I'd probably respond directly to the question you actually submitted. So I would thank you for the question, and I would also acknowledge I'm acutely aware that this is Newcastle, not London, being a leader of this council. So as with all major plans and decisions this council makes, future actions will be based on consultation. An important part of the democratic process is not assuming that actions can be taken for the future without consultation. That would be cut and paste. It might be an idea that when you are out and about discussing the issues with local residents, that you made it clear to them that it is a Conservative government who introduced the order requiring action from local authorities to tackle high roadside levels of pollution, and a Conservative government who delivered the framework for CAS. The expected approach to be taken by local authorities, so we don't need lectures on imposing things on our residents. But let's also be clear, pollution is known to be linked to a number of serious health conditions such as heart disease, cancer and breathing problems, including childhood asthma. Older people, children, those with existing health problems and people who spend a lot of time in vehicles are more likely to suffer the harmful effects of pollution, and this administration will always work to provide the best for the health and well-being of our residents.
Thank you, Councillor Kemp. Mr Foster, you have up to 1 minute to reply.
It may have been a Conservative government which introduced the framework, but I don't think that you can abdicate the responsibility of this council to implement that framework. And I don't think that there was an answer there. Well, with respect, I mean, just because something that can be done doesn't mean it has to be.
Well, we see that in a Conservative government on a daily basis.
Well, you know, I take that on board, but I would say that, you know, it does seem slightly. It does seem like you didn't quite answer the question, which was, you know, would you consider bringing in, you know, this scheme for private vehicles and cars?
I think I did directly. I said we will base all decisions on consultation. So when we get to that point, if we have a consultation, we'll have the consultation.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr Foster. And finally, this is question 3. I will ask Zach Moody to put his question to Council and Councillor Byrne to respond.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Would the Cabinet Member for a Connected City, a Clean City, outline the Council's strategy to tackle the scourge of rats in our city? A city that so many people are proud to call home is becoming plagued with an infestation of rats from Felling to Gosforth. Local people have had enough. With this in mind, on behalf of local residents struggling to manage with this, will you take responsibility and apologise to those who feel let down by the Council's inability to clear the city of rats?
Thank you for the question. Firstly, what I'd have to make clear as an honest politician is no council can clear a city of rats. Rats are part of urban and rural life, and they live in sewers, properties and open spaces. So unless you have the number of a Pied Piper, I won't be able to commit to that. The number of rat reports fluctuates each year with factors such as weather, temperature and access to food. The Council works to keep the rat population under control by removing fly tipping and rubbish, cutting back vegetation and baiting where required in open spaces. We are also working with other North East local authorities led by Durham City Council, requesting that Northumbrian Water increase their sewer baiting programme. We do offer a paid-for pest control service for individual residents and businesses as well. In previous years, the fee has been increased in line with inflation. However, due to the impact on living costs felt by residents, there is no proposed increase in charges for 2023-24. And last point I'd like to make is that we can all play a part in managing the rat population in Newcastle by bagging and binning our food waste. Please don't feed the rats. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Mr Moody, you have up to 1 minute to reply.
That was a thank you very much for the response. Much appreciated.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on then, as you've agreed and voted on at Council, to bring forward agenda item 15, which is the motion defending the right to seek safety from war and persecution. And I'm sure Council will want to join me in welcoming our visitors in the gallery who are here to hear this motion tonight. So I'll call on Councillor Story to move the motion, to be seconded by Councillor Keynes. Thank you.
Deputy Lord Mayor, Council, and thank you so much for allowing me to bring this motion forward. I really appreciate you doing that, not least because we do have refugees and asylum seekers in the chamber tonight, and also because I was so concerned we wouldn't get to hear the motion, and this is something that is becoming a national crisis right now, so it is timely to bring it forward. So thank you for your generosity in allowing me to do that. I'm very proud to bring the motion tonight, which is defending the right to seek safety from war and persecution. Here in Newcastle, as you know, we warmly welcome those who seek to flee war and persecution. We are proud of our history as a city of sanctuary, and to those who come here, we say welcome, you are wanted, you are valued, you will be met with love. This is a message far from the message that is in the media right now. The current debate in the media in relation to those who seek asylum is toxic and terrifying. Those at greatest risk, those who are most vulnerable, are being blamed for a crisis that is not of their making. Yes, the system is broken, but these appalling failures have occurred not because there are too many migrants, not because there are too many people seeking asylum, but because the government has broken its own asylum system. This is a crisis by design, not of the arrivals. The government is keen to stress the recent increase in channel crossings, yet asylum applications are half what they were 20 years ago. Let me be clear. It is not that we have more people arriving than ever before. It's that people are not getting the help and support and the system is not processing people. And so we have people who are stuck in a system for years, their lives on hold. Efficiency has been dropping sharply since 2014, 1 year after Theresa May established the hostile environment and the middle of George Osborne's austerity programme. The intersection of these two forces created an underfunded, cruel Home Office, and with it, Britain's immigration crisis, or so-called crisis. In recent years, this has become worse. We can see as the language of hate by Tory politicians increases, so too do the attacks on asylum seekers. The last month has seen some of the most shocking and deplorable attacks on asylum seekers, protests outside hotels and accommodation in which many asylum seekers are forced to live, and I've been sickened by the attacks on police officers trying to protect asylum seekers in their supposedly safe accommodation. In the last 10 months since I've become a cabinet member responsible for asylum seekers and refugees, I've met with so many wonderful, talented people. They came to Newcastle fleeing some of the worst situations a person could imagine: war, political persecution, and a real threat of being killed because you may be a gay man, stoned to death or hung. And I want to read out to you what some of the people have said to me directly. I want you to hear the voice of Fatma, who's in the hall tonight. And Fatma said to me, when people who are seeking asylum come to a new country, they don't want anything here other than just to be part of your community. No human being is illegal. People seeking sanctuary want to work. They want to find solutions for their own difficulties. In brief, they just want to live like all of us. If city leaders support them, they will feel comfortable, and it will support their mental health as well. And they will feel welcome in the community. From Sadia, it's really important that leaders and councillors at Newcastle City Council are standing up for people seeking asylum. People are facing huge problems. There is a huge waiting list for a decision to have an interview, and it's incredibly hard to access legal advice or support. We are extremely worried about the number of children that are going missing from Home Office hostels, and the Home Office fails to support us in meeting our basic human needs. We cannot cover transport costs or live healthily. We are facing huge difficulties. I'm running out of time, I'm really sorry. I'm running out of time, and I'm not going to get to read out all of the things that you've said to me. But I do want you to know this. I want you to know that Newcastle City Council is listening, and that Newcastle City Council takes very, very seriously the issues that you've raised. And I'm going to end there with a comment from Bushy, who says, we want to thank Newcastle City Councillors and Newcastle Council for standing up for people who are seeking asylum. This great community is built on sympathy. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Story. That was almost on the dot. Councillor Keynes.
Thanks very much, Sheriff. I'm really honoured to be asked to second this motion. The history of UK immigration policy is one of hostility to immigration based on the colour of people's skin. There's an historic pattern of constructing immigration policies around politics rather than evidence, fuelled by a rise in extremist views and toxic narratives around immigration. with British politicians and media using racialised language, leading to a discourse that further stokes anti-immigrant sentiment. These political narratives help perpetuate a destructive and damaging culture in the Home Office, with migrants and asylum seekers forced to jump through excessive hoops in a divisive and hostile system. Zoe Gardner from Asylum Aid gave evidence at the House of Commons Nationality and Borders Bill evidence session. She pointed out, in answer to a Tory MP's question, why do they come here, that the vast majority of refugees, 86%, remain in countries neighbouring to the ones they are fleeing from. France receives 3 times as many applications in 2020 as Britain. Most people stop when they feel safe. The people who make their way to Britain do so because they have ties to this country. They have served in our military as with people in Afghanistan. They have family ties. They speak the language because of our colonial history, or have other ties of kinship and history with Britain. These are people with legitimate ties to Britain, or there is no good reason why they should have their claims assessed in France. Refugees and asylum seekers overwhelmingly seek to be here because we were there. An historic example. In the period immediately before and after the emancipation of slaves in 1838, you're going to get a little bit of history here, there was a major movement of people across the globe. As the British Empire, the British government, the Colonial Office, producers and plantation owners sought to replace the labour of freed slaves with the labour of indentured Indian workers who were shipped across the empire to ensure the continued profitability of raw material production and the supply of primary materials maintained for 19th century British manufacturing. So we have a history there of movement. Right, I don't think I've got much more time. I just want to finish off with saying that the British Medical Association has estimated that at least 40% of asylum seekers have experienced torture, are vulnerable and have severe mental health issues. Accommodation for those seeking asylum is characterised by instability, a requirement to share bedrooms, and use of hotel and barracks that remind people of being forcibly conscripted, all things that re-traumatise people. There's ongoing poverty for refugees and asylum seekers as they transition with leave to remain. The importance of asylum seekers and refugees being welcomed and accepted as members of our communities and as our neighbours.
Can you wind up, Councillor Keynes?
Just finish up. Cannot be overstated to support their healing and their rehabilitation. We need an anti-racist, pro-human rights approach to those seeking asylum and refuge. They are me, they are my neighbours, they are my family. I second this motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Keynes, and definitely well up on the history now. So I have no speakers indicated for this motion, so I'm going to ask Councillor Story if she wants to exercise right of reply. No, that's fine. Is the motion agreed? There you are, unanimous across this council. I hope that says something to you all, and thank you. Thank you for coming and for being here to hear that with us. And can I say to you that you're welcome to continue to attend the rest of tonight's meeting. You may choose to go, and nobody would blame you for that at all. So if you do want to go, there are staff to make sure that you're safely out of the building, and we wish you best wishes from all of us. And thank you. So we're going to move on to agenda item 7, which is the main purpose of tonight's meeting, our medium-term financial planning for 23-24 to 25-26. And I'm going to call on Councillor Frew to move the report, to be seconded by Councillor Kemp. And I'm sure I actually don't need to remind you, Councillor Frew, that the mover of the motion has up to 20 minutes to speak, and the seconder has 5 minutes but can reserve the right to speak later on in the agenda. Councillor Frew.
I think the audience heard 20 minutes and realised it was time to leave. And thank you. I'm going to be calling you Lord Mayor all night. You might as well get used to it now, mightn't you?
I will try hard not to.
Thank you, Sheriff, future Lord Mayor. I'm proud to bring our medium-term financial plan and 2023-24 budget to Council. This sets out direction for the Council's finances over the next 3 years, including granular detail for 23-24. And by the way, Councillor Kane will be glad to know that he can access all 200 pages of the budget online. I hope that makes him happy in a way that I can't possibly understand. Also set out are the work streams for strategic level transformation of the organisation and its services, integrated impact assessments, and the outcomes of the public consultation. This has only been possible thanks to enormous efforts by officers across the organisation, and I am very grateful to them all. I want to take a moment to thank all of our dedicated staff who deliver council services day in, day out. And specific to the budget, I would like to thank Mark Nicholson, who has very ably, clearly, and transparently overseen the process as a Chief Finance Officer. Also thanks to our trade unions, who have been very helpful in their contributions, and I hope we will continue to have a constructive relationship where we work in partnership to deliver better services and ensure that this council is an excellent place to work. For context, producing a realistic balanced budget is no simple matter. The current economic circumstances that are causing widespread hardship mean that more people than ever are in need of help at a time when the Council's own finances are hard-pressed. The last time the UK saw double-digit retail price index inflation was in 1991, incidentally the year I was born. Few winces there. We can only hope that we've passed this peak of a 40-year high in inflation and that we are starting to see the clouds clear. However, we do know there is more ahead. While the whole world is suffering from the longer impacts of COVID and the disastrous consequences of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the UK's economic woes stand out. A litany of government failures have placed us in a much worse situation than we should have been in. This runs through the paralysis of the current government, Liz Truss's farce of a premiership, the botched job of Brexit, on which the government has delivered nothing it promised, to the gutting of public services under the coalition. Throughout all 50 shades of Tory we have seen in the past 12 years, and that includes Nick Clegg, none have delivered meaningful improvements to the standard of living for people in Britain. For local government, they have only made things worse through real-term cuts in funding, short-term funding settlements that do not allow us to plan far in advance, and nonsense beauty pageant funding that we cannot rely on. We still don't know when levelling up is meant to arrive, or frankly, what the government ever meant by it. It's never been clear, and I don't think there was a real idea behind it. At least under Labour, we had a dedicated minister fighting our corner in Downing Street. So what does this mean for Newcastle? Year on year, the council has had to save money. This is not optional, and we cannot simply print money or stop delivering statutory services. Effectively, we have to deliver the same services with 1/3 less central funding than in 2010 in real terms. In addition to this, there has been significant increases in the need for some of our services. Overall, we have had to find 341 million savings since 2011, annual savings. I'll be clear that some of this has had to be service cuts. Efficiency is not a bottomless well. We set our draft budget last October, and the outcomes of this are presented in tonight's papers. We have listened carefully and found that the points of greatest concern were those the administration went into this process thinking the most. The most pressing concern has been the cost of living, which I'll talk about more in a moment. The action that we have taken on this in Newcastle, I believe, is outstanding. Our adults and children's social care are critical support for many who are vulnerable or need support to maintain independence. Failure of these services would mean serious consequences for our service users. These services make up 2/3 of our revenue budget, and we have protected them as far as we can. What additional money was announced in the local government finance settlement has been allocated to these services as a priority. To be clear, that this is a sticking plaster on the issue. It is an admission by the government that social care is in crisis and that they are unwilling to resolve this. We have had numerous prime ministers promise reform and not deliver anything. Our spend through voluntary and community sector is also widely welcomed. In total, this was £53.6 million last year, and we remain committed to VCS in this city. I want to thank every individual and organisation who have contributed to the consultation, and we are sending out specific responses, I hope, and I'm more than happy to pick up any points that are left outstanding from those. I also look forward to hearing more about the opposition's amendments, which we have had a whole less than 48 hours to go over. I will be honest, I find them a bit puzzling, at times creative with money, but definitely puzzling. I'll start then on the cost of living crisis. This has been the sharpest cut in the standard of living in the UK in most people's lifetime. We have mobilised the Council's resources to provide support as far as we can and in partnership with voluntary and community organisations. We've been hearing some truly saddening stories. In response, our team has been able to very quickly put support into place. I recently spoke with a gentleman who had not had a hot meal in 4 days. The council managed to have someone to his door within hours, set him up with hot meals, and ensure that he would get the care that he needed going forward. There are many stories like this. I'm sure that each councillor in this chamber has seen their share of it. There is an updated booklet on our support provided to each councillor, and I believe there are more copies in the back. This was one of our early steps in tackling this crisis and making sure that the information that we provide is as clear as it can be and our support is as widely available as possible. This year we've distributed nearly £6 million in household support funds through holiday meals, direct payments and through hardship payments to help people who have fallen through the cracks of social security. We have secured these funds again for the coming year and plan to continue our successful approach in collaboration with the voluntary sector. We have established 94 wellbeing hubs and a prescription heat pilot scheme to help people with the cold. Given everything we've been seeing, and we know there is more to come, the administration has strongly prioritised these issues in the budget. We're very conscious that family incomes are tight, and so we have limited next year's council tax increase to 1.99% with a 2% precept. We did not do this lightly, and the additional 1% on the precept was entirely necessary in order to address costs in social care. Meanwhile, we have expanded our council tax reduction scheme for those on low incomes by RPI, that is, by over 12%. This will see more people receiving support and at greater levels. We have also secured a further £1 million to add to this scheme, which should reduce bills by another £60 for people receiving council tax support. We have also frozen the cost of our charge services and are continuing to fund our excellent welfare rights service. I'm very proud that we are now also a real living wage accredited council. As part of the administration at the start of the year, I was on a mission to achieve this, and I'm still pleasantly surprised at just how quickly officers made that a reality. Along with Sunderland, we became the first accredited local authorities in the North East. The principle is simple. Work should pay, and it should pay enough to live on. Council employees have been receiving real living wage for several years now, and we will be ensuring that all of our commission services pay this as well. It could mean another £2,000 a year in the pockets of some of the lowest paid workers in our city, notably in adult social care, who definitely deserve it. Key to our vision for the city is to bring employers in the city along with us and end low pay in Newcastle. There will be much more on this in our forthcoming inclusive economy strategy and our poverty strategy. On our services, a lot of the council's day-to-day goes unnoticed in keeping the city ticking over. These services deserve greater recognition as every resident, business and visitor relies on their delivery, and our staff work very hard for the city. The scale of which we have to operate at is massive, so services will not always be perfect. But where there are issues, we try to act quickly to resolve those. We do a huge amount to engage with our residents to understand what they think getting the basics right means, and the Cabinet is determined to ensure that we have a shared understanding of this across the organisation. We have held numerous meetings to work through the details of those with service leaders, with directors throughout the organisation to pull that vision together. It is a challenge to continue delivering services to the standard that residents expect with such stretched resources. We sweep over 4,000 miles of road every 10 days, make 7.3 million bin collections across the year. We have over 5,000 adults receiving social care, and we're responsible for 667 looked after children. And so we've preserved growth funding for neighbourhood services from last year, and we've put more money into the maintenance of trees across our city. On trees, our plans are to go beyond just technical arboricultural assessments and to address trees that people have reasonable safety concerns over. We're committed to an additional tree team because we strongly believe that this maintenance is necessary. Fundamentally, our tree strategy is about the right trees in the right places. Our savings proposals are predominantly about the way we work and doing this more efficiently. There are some job reductions, but these are mostly vacant posts where our work is adapted to go on without filling these. We can also make better use of our operational property, Allendale Road being one that has gone beyond its useful life and has an annual running cost of £500,000. I can't say too much currently, but we are working on plans that will be of huge benefit to the city using this site. Our adult social care services aim to help people live more independently, and our children's services aim to improve on keeping families together. This means rethinking our service delivery in the wider context of people's lives as parts of families and communities in order to enable them to have more control in their lives. On the capital spend, the Council is a major investor in the city. We have invested £113 million into the city at the end of last year, and in addition, the housing revenue account investment of about £45 million. We've significantly reviewed the governance around the capital programme in order to bring this better into focus. We have a new dashboard on the way and additional reporting that will make it clearer to the Cabinet and publicly how we are achieving our major projects. This is key to effectively delivering affordable and quality housing in the city and supporting the local economy. We have delivered quality office space in the city that has been sorely needed. We will deliver the Outer West Leisure Centre. We have 1.9 million for high streets in the east of the city, and we continue to support the riverside economy. The capital programme is also a key driver for our net zero delivery. We've successfully delivered tens of millions of pounds in projects to decarbonise public buildings in the city, despite very unreasonable deadlines by central government. We can and will go further on this in the coming years, and I should say that Councillor Burnhouse has been a real champion on this agenda. We have ambitious plans for the continual improvement of how the Council functions. We have learned useful lessons from the LGA peer review and the SIPFA review, which set us on course to keep Newcastle at the leading edge of local government. The whole world has seen business planning disrupted through COVID and inflation, so in such rough conditions, a critical task of this MTFP is to right the ship and plot course for the organisation. The work streams identified in the MTFP will not only produce savings that will sustain services into the future, they should also transform the way we work as an organisation to deliver more effectively for residents. Among these, we aim to become a sector leader in the way that we tie together digital tools and information. A fundamental review of our commercial property has been underway to ensure that it delivers for the Council's finances and for the city's economy. Services for our most vulnerable in adult social care, children's social care and SEND transport are some of the most expensive services that the Council provides, and there are opportunities to support people in more efficient and effective ways. I think it's worth highlighting that the current Cabinet has only been in place for 1 year to reach this point. I think Nick has done an excellent job in putting together a team and making the best use of the talents in there.
3 minutes left, Councillor Frew.
Yeah. Fresh eyes and a refreshed approach have allowed us to think about how the Council delivers services quite fundamentally. We are setting a 3-year course for the organisation that will deliver the best that can be done with limited resources in very turbulent times. Lord Mayor, times are very tough for the Council, for our residents and for the city as a whole. It is in times of adversity that we show what we are made of, not just in steeling ourselves, but also in showing compassion for those who are not coping. We have really stretched the Council finances to help our residents through this. The MTFP and budget underpins our ability to deliver services and the wider set of strategies that we have. I'm not presenting all of our answers on everything today, but the means to put those strategies in place. The inclusive economic strategy will set out in clear terms our vision for the future of Newcastle, and our anti-poverty strategy will set out our approach on the rise of poverty in Newcastle and the North East. The Labour vision for our city is one where excellent opportunities for our young, with good work widely available, and those unable to work are given as much agency in their life as possible. In Newcastle, Labour are focused on what matters to our residents. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Frew. Well in time. And I call on Councillor Kemp to second.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I'm proud to second our medium-term financial plan and budget to Council today. This sets out the things that matter most to our residents: good quality education and skills, health and social care, jobs and economic prosperity, housing and transport, reducing poverty and inequality, and a local council that is well run, transparent and accountability to residents. It provides the how, not just how we understand these priorities, but how we deliver them safely and sufficiently. It sets out how we will balance our budget to meet not only our statutory duties, but also to invest in the early interventions and prevention activity that we know will reduce need and reduce pressures on crisis services. This is an increasingly difficult and thankless task. The cuts from central government keep coming. Our city has had 30% of its funding cut since 2010. We must maintain and improve quality and levels of services for more and more people with increasingly complex and challenging needs with less and less money. I'm very proud of the way my Cabinet and Council officers have risen to this considerable challenge, working together to our 3 overarching priorities to eradicate poverty in our city, mitigate the impacts on our residents of the cost of living crisis, and achieve our net zero ambitions. This collective effort has ensured that we can understand all impacts of our decisions on residents, businesses and communities in Newcastle, and that the budget we balance is the fairest it can be. We've listened to our residents and heard them. Our 8-week consultation was an important part of the process, enabling us to sense-check funding proposals. We appreciate the time taken by those who gave their thoughts and suggestions. The increasing financial pressures on councils everywhere means that our budget cannot stretch as far as we'd wish. Our medium-term financial plan is designed to give stability now and in the future and must be seen in the context of the savings we've had to make. But what we do have now is a plan and budget to address 3 important areas: improving our organisational efficiency and effectiveness, promoting independence and building community resilience, and generating income to support our services. I'm proud of our achievements. Our recent announcement of the Council becoming an accredited living wage is a true testimony to the ambition of this Council. In it, we achieved in quick time, meaning about 800 of our lowest paid staff will be paid an extra £1 per hour, which will not only help them in the cost of living crisis, but will also benefit the local economy. And obviously, we've also distributed almost £6 million in household support funds, helping those most in need. Our response to the cost of living crisis has been acknowledged by many as innovative and for all our city. Our guide is a well-used resource, and our partnerships across the city have established over 90 winter wellbeing hubs, with more joining every week. Thank you to all those organisations and communities working with us. And we've made significant progress in achieving net zero, building on the record of the last few years. I know my colleagues will share many more of our successes and their contributions this evening. As I stated in my letter to the Chancellor, the current council tax system has never been the solution to meeting the long-term pressures of our services. Our decisions to raise taxes, including a social care precept, was a necessary step and one that was not taken lightly. We should take this opportunity to publicly call on the government to implement a system of equalisation of income generated by council tax. This makes ultimate sense to truly achieving levelling up. Our decision not to increase council tax to the full amount expected by government is a recognition of the challenges facing our residents. The further investment we are making into our council tax reduction scheme will help our residents meeting other rising costs such as food, mortgages, rent and fuel. We've worked closely with our trade union colleagues and I'm grateful for their support in this budget process. And we've focused our attention on avoiding compulsory redundancies where possible. Key to our thinking is a whole city approach, and I recognise the need to look to reduce poverty and create opportunities for all is a responsibility of us all. I'm delighted that next week we'll see the launch of our inclusive economic strategy and anti-poverty strategy. Both of these are ambitious for our city, with a desire for them to be adopted by the city as a whole, not just the City Council. Lord Mayor, this has not been an easy process to make choices no one would wish to in such uncertain times, but I am clear that this Labour budget is one which has been listened to by our residents, holds our 3 priorities to the fore and focuses on protecting and providing for our citizens in the very best way we can. I note from the amendments that the opposition do not disagree to the substantive part of this budget, and I wish to put on record my thanks to the council staff to everything they do on a daily basis delivering for our citizens. I'm proud of what we've achieved, but I'm equally clear that we need a wholly different approach to our funding from central government. It's simple. Long-term, fairer funding for councils is the only way to stop our nationwide crisis. There can be no doubt, and there are no alternatives. The stability and success of the UK economy is contingent upon the stability and resilience of local authorities such as Newcastle. I wish to pay great credit to this administration, to my cabinet, and especially Councillor Frew in delivering his first council budget, which I'm proud to support and reject the amendments.
Almost in time. Almost in time. Well done. I'm going to move to the opposition and ask Councillor Ferguson to respond to the report and to move the amendments to be seconded by Councillor Hall.
I just need to declare an interest in Amendment 1 and I won't be voting in that particular one.
Is that what kind of... is it it's a professional one? That's fine. That's fine. Okay, thank you for that. So, Councillor Ferguson to respond to the report and to move the amendments to be seconded by Councillor Hall. Now, Councillor Ferguson, again, you have up to 20 minutes to speak, and the seconder has 5, but can reserve the right to speak. And if I could also remind members that under Standing Order 17 brackets F6, the budget proposals and amendments will be the subject of a single debate, and then each amendment will be voted on in turn. So we're going to have a number of votes on this budget report. Councillor Ferguson, if you would like to begin speaking on the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Just before Christmas, during the cold snap, a resident rings me. I'm sat on the floor of the kitchen, he tells me, with the oven door open and the oven on, because my heating's broken and I can't get anyone out to fix it. Despite being on the priority repairs list, he waits 36 hours for a repair because there's only one emergency call-out heating engineer working in the city for his housing. Over the summer, I stand with a woman and her daughter in a play park. The rubber on the ground is peeling and some of the equipment has been out of action for months. I've offered to contribute some of my own money and help with crowdfunding, she says, but they've stopped returning my calls. A resident calls me. She explains she had a serious fall in the street due to defective paving. She called the council to try and get it fixed, with no luck getting through. I don't want anything for me, she says. I just want to make sure other people don't fall like I did. It takes me stepping in before a repair is undertaken. And these are just the stories shared with me. My colleagues have others, as I'm sure we all do, from across the chamber. Residents stuck inside because the lift in their block isn't working. People with disabilities unable to fill in blue badge applications because of an unmet accessibility need, being told simply to find someone else to help. Antisocial behaviour left unchecked, even when the perpetrators are known. And in the midst of it all, spiralling costs of heating and eating, rent hikes in the social and private sectors, longer wait times, and poorer outcomes in vital services. This is the reality of life today for many people in our city. So where to point the gnarled finger of blame? On many issues, the problems are national, and the Tories must take their share of the blame. The government is on the hook of fantasy politics, desperately trying to keep the sputtering flame of their leadership of the country alight by chopping and changing leaders with the seasons. They are a triumph of ideology-based politics over evidence-based policy-making, undoubtedly flashy and exciting, but like any sugar rush, always accompanied by a crash. Not, to be clear, that I'm particularly convinced by Sir Keir's slogan by focus group approach either, it must be said, although I recognise from the polls that voters will back any seemingly safe harbour in a storm. So the national context matters. Constrained funding, an over-reliance on unreformed council tax and business rates, piecemeal grant funding coming in off the back of competitive bidding. All of this makes the job of local government harder. It makes it harder to respond to pressure in the SEN transport provider market, or to prioritise capital investment, or to grapple with increased pressure in social care. I know you think there's a but coming. There's not. However, responsibility and accountability go hand in hand. However much I might wish it were otherwise, Labour are in control in this city. Whether it be the council administration, the invisible mayor, or the ever-present police and crime commissioner, Labour have their hands on the levers. And every single one of them were elected on the basis of manifestos that promise to do things, not make excuses. We've had nearly a year of the spruced-up shop front of this Labour group, but residents tell me time and again that they're still selling the same old stuff. Take the budget put in front of us this year. It's the same format, the same salami-slicing approach, and a big gap where Year 2 and 3 proposals should be. We have gone through a consultation process that has changed nothing. I have argued since I first entered the chamber that this council needs a proper strategy, a compelling vision, and a clear performance management framework to see it delivered. But the allergy to these simple foundational mechanisms has left us high and dry. As a result, the budget we're faced with includes, by any reasonable estimation, £8.9 million of savings, almost 40% of the total, which appear to be technical fixes rather than transformational projects. I know it takes time to turn a tanker, and I know members opposite recognise that too. But this council can spend all the money that it wants, but unless Labour says what they're going to deliver, and then delivers what they say they're going to deliver when they say they're going to deliver it, residents will be unimpressed. And residents are unimpressed. The ambition for the last decade appears to have been to show how difficult Newcastle has it, so that the Parliamentary Labour Party can come galloping over the hill like the riders of Rohan and save the day. So instead of working to support Newcastle to be the best it can be, we've been used as a test case by friendly journalists in London fed lines about how bad the nasty Tory government makes it for the North. I think the group opposite knows that and has belatedly had a spat in an effort to change things. But there still remains the belief that someone can wave a magic wand and make it all better. The Tories have been a disaster for the North, and a disaster for Newcastle. But this budget and future budgets have to face up to the new reality, a new local government model that doesn't rely on the funding streams of the past. So we need more transformation of statutory services, greater investment in early intervention to bring down costs elsewhere, sensible leveraging of capital investment tied into a regional strategy that boosts the economy for everyone and reduces the need for financial support for council tax and social rents. We need clear minimum service standards that restore public confidence and a strategy for improving the whole of the public realm, not just in the city centre. We need collaboration between and across the local authorities of the North East, particularly if we're to have a new combined authority in the near future. And parochial thinking that ends at a local authority boundary line needs to stop. All of these need a ground-up rebuilding of the budget, beyond what can simply be amended in a single year. And whilst we're at all of that, we need to listen to and engage with our residents. We need to pay attention to what they're saying, to respond and to make them feel valued, because they don't feel valued and listened to right now, despite what's said here. They feel the council does things to them, not with them, where change is driven punitively instead of through positive encouragement. I worry about the number of conversations on the doorsteps I'm having these days where people say to me, "What's the point? No one ever listens to me. They'll just do what they want. I might not even bother voting." Something needs to change. Deputy Lord Mayor, I want to turn to our amendments. My colleagues in the opposition will speak in more detail on each amendment shortly, but for now, allow me to offer a short summary. Our amendments, as ever, show that a costed alternative is possible. The comfortable narrative that Labour's budget is forced is false. Other options are available. On the growth funding for trees, we propose a minor amendment that preserves vital work on risk management, still recruits specialist staff, and provides a small amount of funding for planting hard-to-place or replace trees, exactly those that residents across the city want to see on their streets. And for that, funding is freed up for other changes. We can build up the capacity of our Climate Change Committee, providing real depth and input into the Council's drive to achieve net zero. Fresh ideas, support and challenge are there for the taking instead of a toothless talking shop. Free blue badge parking is a possibility and should never have been cut. It's a minor saving, easily reversed, if this administration wants to show it really supports people with disabilities. We don't need to get rid of bikeability. We are deeply sceptical of the administration's commitment to supporting active travel. We have schemes going in now that have had their roots in decisions made years ago, but more recent progress is patchy. This amendment offers a simple step to reassure residents of this city that the administration still cares. The Great North City Fund is a regular target of mine, I'll acknowledge, but to be clear, for several years I've been told it's a finite fund and it's nearly done. And every year, it's still there, a wee bit of money taken out, a bit more money put in. There are other sources of funding for the sorts of things the Great North City Fund supports. There is not an embarrassment of riches for the voluntary sector, and yet the voluntary sector can help with so many aspects of the Council's delivery. The voluntary sector is a vital partner. Let's support it more. On Allendale Road, let's not all pretend that there aren't mixed feelings about the closure of this facility. We've seen it before. Brunswick Household Waste Recycling Centre was for the chop. Totally unviable, had to go, no hope of keeping it open. Well, look at that. We said it should be kept open so that an options analysis can be undertaken, and here it is, still open. So let's make sure all options have been considered for Allendale Road, because it seems to me that not all stakeholders are convinced. And yes, Lord Mayor, I recognise that we're bringing back our old favourite, the workplace parking levy. Just earlier today, Councillor Cookson shared with me an article that starts, "The UK's leading sustainable transport campaign group, Campaign for Better Transport, has visited Nottingham to see for itself how the country's only workplace parking levy has revolutionised how people travel around the city." It might take 3 years to implement, but the benefits could be transformational. Oh, if only Labour had been bold enough to have the vision to back us years ago, we could be implementing it right now. As it is, we'll probably have to wait a few years from now if we agree to it tonight. Still, the Tyne Bridge would be grateful of a timeline as quick as that, eh? And finally, 2 amendments that recognise the pressure of inflation on both residents and the council. Firstly, a written commitment to using funding coming into the council to provide a rebate on council tax for those in support of council tax support, and to commit to a year's worth of holiday meals vouchers. Residents, families, individuals, they want certainty and comfort, and this is a vital way to do it. We need to put a protective arm around the people of our city, go further on cost of living, and see our people through this most challenging of times. Holiday hunger is a scourge. Secondly, a behaviour change programme to meaningfully bring down energy costs for the council, generating savings that can be reinvested. And with the unit cost of energy as high as it is now, the savings could be significant. The evidence on the effectiveness of these approaches is robust, but we recognise that a trial is likely to be the best approach in budgetary terms in the first instance. This will generate real savings, but we have made no revenue commitments against them in year 1. What's to lose? I offer this summary in the hope, but not necessarily the expectation, that the Labour Group will support our amendments. All of this might suggest that I have a decidedly glum outlook for the city. But that couldn't be further from the truth. I've chosen to settle here, to start a family. I think Newcastle is a wonderful place to live and thrive. One thing that I've always appreciated about this chamber is that we all love this city and all want the best for it. I want my son to grow up here, to be able to go to a good school, to be able to cycle there safely when he's old enough, to enjoy our green spaces, and to have the opportunity, when he gets to that age, to get a good job here, doing something he loves, whatever that might be. I want him to live in a good home, to enjoy good services, and to love Newcastle like I do. This means getting things right today. No more spats and squabbling, articulating and delivering a real vision for Newcastle, collaboration across local authority lines, and no more excuses. In fairness, I note a shift in the rhetoric on display from the speeches so far tonight, so I say to the Labour Group, you've had a decade at it, it's your agenda, it's your mess, so sort it out, or we're happy to do it for you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Hall to second, but you do have the opportunity to reserve the right if you want. Yes? Are you reserving? Okay, fine. Thank you very much for that. Now then, there's as this is the budget meeting, there's no limit on the number of speakers, but I will be strict on this. Each member can speak only once, and each speaker is allowed only 5 minutes, up to 5 minutes. And a number of members have already indicated that they wish to speak. So firstly, I will take those speakers one at a time, and then I will ask other members to indicate if they wish to speak. And then finally, I will call on members who've reserved the right to speak. That is only Councillor Hall. And then I will call on Councillor Frew to reply. And there will be a named vote on each of the amendments proposed. So the first speaker I have on the report is Councillor Greenhoff, to be followed by Councillor Ashby.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Sheriff, can't forget the right term, I'm sure. Everyone in this chamber is aware of the disproportionate and unfair cuts that local government have suffered over the past 13 years. In Newcastle, we've lost nearly 350 million to our budget since 2010. The Institute for Government have highlighted what we in the chamber already know, that the most deprived areas have been cut the hardest over a decade of austerity. But we didn't need them to say that. We see it every day in our city, and those who don't believe us can just listen to the former Chancellor, now Prime Minister, bragging this summer when he said to Tory members how he had worked hard to divert funding from deprived urban areas to prosperous Tory shires. So much for levelling up. But despite the extremely challenging context in which we find ourselves, I'm proud of some of the work that we've done locally, with Labour showing that we deliver and care about the Outer West of Newcastle. The Epic West End project in my ward has secured funding aimed at tackling antisocial behaviour through building community resilience and partnerships. This has recently seen joint walkabouts with partner agencies to help design out crime and antisocial behaviour, litter picks, fly tipping removing, but more importantly, working with community to build and develop ideas that can leave a lasting legacy in the area. West Denton is one of a number of EPIC projects that's been supported by this Labour Council, putting our values into action and showing that communities shouldn't have to suffer due to a minority who try to ruin an area for others. Funded through our Better Living Safer community programme, this investment of 1.5 million to tackle antisocial behaviour is already showing real progress on the ground in West Denton, and I'm sure it is in the other areas where it's been rolled out. And I wouldn't go through a speech in this chamber without mentioning the Outer West Leisure Centre. With Catherine McKinnell, and I'll declare my interest as a member of her office, Labour councillors campaigned to secure the funding for the Outer West Leisure Centre. Some in the community and representatives of not political parties, I don't think they call themselves anymore, said it wasn't going to be delivered. We couldn't secure the funding. And I was delighted yesterday to join the members' briefing where we saw the progress that has already been made to deliver this facility that we championed from the very beginning. This is a flagship project for the council, for our residents in Denton, Westerhope and across the Outer West. 26 million, delivering a state-of-the-art facility, one that I'm sure everyone can be proud of in this chamber. An 8-lane swimming pool, trainer pool, splash pad, a sauna and steam facilities alongside a sports hall, studios, a gym, as well as a new library, cafe, soft play and shared community room. It will be a prize in the Outer West of Newcastle, and I'm delighted that it's a Labour council with a Labour MP that is delivering that for our area. I genuinely believe that it could be a transformative project, not, as some opposite may have said, a white elephant that will fail to deliver. I look forward to showing around the facility once it is finally delivered. I will continue to champion this fantastic project for our residents. In conclusion, Lord Mayor, there is no denying that... Sorry, I keep calling you Lord Mayor. Sorry. There is no denying the tough choices that have been forced upon us. But the austerity of the past 13 years, we are just now seeing coming through, because we're seeing a decade of people who haven't had those youth service, haven't had that wraparound support, haven't had the local government that we would have had if it wasn't for the cuts that have been imposed on us. So to Councillor Ferguson's point about where we've come and how we got here, between 2010 and 2015, the Lib Dems voted time and time again to cut our funding, to slash our services. So when you're wondering where the youth services are, where the pavements are, where the roads are, it is the Lib Dems who voted time and time again for it. Thank you, Greg. I'm going to assume you're cheering me on, Greg. Cheering me on. We need to see a sustainable funding settlement from the government in future, based on needs in our communities that we represent. We must see a shift away from the costly, untransparent, competitive funding pots, pitting council against council, community against community, and stifling the long-term vision and investment that we need for our communities. Until we get that and a Labour government that will truly cares about our residents, I know that Newcastle Labour will continue to do everything we can to protect the most vulnerable from the cuts, secure investment and funding where we can, and deliver the services that our residents rightly deserve, despite the challenges we face. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Greenhoff. I'll pay you later. Councillor Ashby, to be followed by Councillor Kilgour and Councillor Kane.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Amendment 1 is the Liberal Democrats' declaration of our intent to help those who most need it, and an enabler for the future of our fight to save the environment. The people of Parklands will be delighted to learn of our commitment to replacing felled trees which have made our streets so pleasant and which used to be carbon sinks and suckers up of pollution. Long-established communities such as Grange and Garden Village have seen mature trees hit by age and disease. The chainsaws have toppled them, and until recently their stumps have been a mute rebuke to this administration, which couldn't even produce a functioning stump grinder to clear up the mess left behind. Our pledge is that Newcastle, under the Liberal Democrats, will invest in trees with its own money, not just relying on planting funded by road schemes or the Great North Forest. Oxfam's message used to be, give a man a fish, he'll eat today. Teach him to fish, he'll feed his family for life. As I've told Council before, we have voluntary organisations we should support more strongly because of their multiplying roles similar to teaching fishing. I've mentioned particularly the West End Food Bank and Citizen Advice. Both are successful in helping people to claim from the government that which is rightly theirs. Citizens Advice has doubled their client base in a year, a big indication of how badly they are needed. They rely greatly on volunteers, but because their core funding is restricted, they can't give their paid staff a cost of living pay rise, and as a consequence, face pressure for these people from other organisations. What then will be happening to the people who need their advice so badly? With a payback to service users of £19 for every £1 Citizens Advice spends to help local people, this is the best sort of investment the Council can make. The Food Bank Advice Service has similarly helped local people to get over £1 million of grant money. These are the sort of huge and valuable returns which amply justify our proposal in Amendment 5. As Deputy Lord Mayor, I support the Liberal Democrats' budget package in its entirety, and I give you back 2.5 minutes.
You do indeed, Councillor Ashby. Thank you very much. Councillor Kilgour, to be followed by Councillor Kane.
Sorry, I was taken by surprise by the 2.5 minutes we got back there. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Despite 12, nearly 13 years of austerity, And let's be clear here, austerity never ended for local government. Levelling up was yet another slogan from yet another Tory Prime Minister. And despite all of these challenges we faced over the last few years, from a pandemic that we're still feeling the effects of, a cost of living crisis, increased food, energy and fuel bills, the effects of rising poverty levels and sky-high inflation, despite all of that, we still have a duty to deliver a balanced budget. Our council delivers a huge number and variety of services, some of which are immediately visible to our residents. Others, although no less important, perhaps aren't quite so obvious and perhaps aren't at the forefront of our residents' minds until they actually need to access one of those services. And I think social care across the life course often falls into that latter category. People are often surprised at how much of the council's budget is spent on providing adults and children's social care. And looking at the overall sums, I'm sure it would be easy to make the assumption that shaving off a few million here and there would be a relatively easy, simple thing to do. But what isn't immediately obvious when you look at those overall figures is that they're made up of individual care packages and placements, multiple year contracts, and buildings and staffing costs to provide everything from specialist dementia care services, services for people with profound learning and physical disabilities, right through to reablement care, community transport, and social workers. And within that, we have a statutory and a moral duty to provide adult social care to anyone who meets the national eligibility criteria. I know I sound like a broken record, but we're working in a local context of increased demand at a time of diminishing resources, and a national context of chronic underfunding, temporary funding, legislative change, and a crisis in recruitment and retention of social care staff. Which is why I'm so proud that this administration prioritised its commitment to becoming a real living wage employer, achieving accreditation last November. The majority of staff who will benefit from this in the city work in the social care sector, particularly those working in the commissioned services, and the majority of whom will be women. However, given the enormity of the challenge ahead of us, it is right that adult social care contributes to the overall savings targets. There are no easy decisions. If there ever were, then they were made a decade or more ago. Delivering savings year after year after year is hard. There's no getting away from that. And these proposals are ambitious, but I do believe they're achievable. And these proposals don't sit in isolation. Our staff continue to do all they can to manage demand and to prevent or delay the need for social care in the first place. As I highlighted last month when I brought my annual report and the local account to Council, in 2021 to 22, there were 9,539 requests from support from people who did not already draw on support and care from the Council. And that was 976, 10% more than the previous year, alongside an increase of 38% in safeguarding concerns reported. 89% of people told us that their care services made them feel safe and secure. Just over 80% of people finished their short-term reablement with either no ongoing care needs or support at a lower level. And just over 86% of people were still at home 91 days after discharge from hospital into a reablement service. These are figures to be proud of. But what's really important is that behind every statistic is a person we have kept safe or who we've helped to retain their independence, a carer we've given support or respite to, or someone whose life we've enhanced in some way by supporting them to do the things they value and that bring them joy. The budget setting process is difficult and becomes more difficult each year, but we mustn't lose sight of the many, many services we continue to deliver and to deliver well. This budget, while challenging, is the best way for us to continue to provide those services that so many of our residents rely on, and I urge Council to support it. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kilgour. Councillor Keane, to be followed by Councillor Chisholm and Councillor Lovett.
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Frew, for providing something which is starting to resemble a budget book. It's got the numbers, it lacks the narrative, but it's starting to get there. He questioned why I might want this, but I think we all should have it, because after all, we are voting tonight on the council budget, I think it's pretty basic that we should have seen the actual budget before we vote on it. The second reason is that looking at the budget as a whole focuses the council on the big picture rather than the salami slicing we've had for the last 11 years. Salami slicing we were promised we would never have. So it's basic transparency and scrutiny. But thank you for moving in the right direction at least. Just a few comments on the amendments. The scrutiny panel funding. I think at the last Climate Change Committee we had quite a strong cross-party support for switching to a scrutiny panel. The only question was how that would be funded, whether it would be rather expensive. The committee seemed to think that it wasn't a question of it being too expensive, it was how could we afford not to have a scrutiny panel. But this amendment provides a way of funding it. Bikeability, just about now, my middle child will be cycling home in the dark from his rugby practice on his own. If we want young people, to be confident about cycling around the city and not having to be taxied around by parents in SUVs, then bikeability is vital. I would love to see the workplace parking levy. I won't go into more details here, but I do think we've missed a trick not going for it already because it's a source of income for sustainable transport. But I really wanted to talk about energy efficiency. At a scrutiny panel before Christmas, I think it was November, I walked into the room and it was stifling hot inside. I went over and the thermostat had been turned to 25 degrees centigrade. Unfortunately, when I turned it down to 20, the air conditioning came in and blasted cold air over poor Councillor Penny Evans, who's wincing at the memory. Despite the fact it was 4 degrees outside, the system was burning huge amounts of energy to cool down the room that had already been overheated. Being a bit of a nerd about these things, I do keep an eye on the thermostats, and they're often at 22, 23 degrees, normally too high for a working office, which demonstrates there's plenty of scope for energy efficiency savings. There is a whole raft of evidence, and Councillor Ferguson and I were bouncing these backwards and forwards last week, that behavioural change measures can deliver easily 10 and in one study 18.8% savings in office environments. It's very easy. A lot of people still don't really know how a thermostat works, and that's why they get set to 25 because people think it heats the room faster. It doesn't. It just overheats it. It all works at the same rate. So engaging people, awareness raising, and possibly a building management system could deliver substantial savings, and we've been very small c conservative in our estimations of that ramping up from 0 to 10% of energy. It can be done and it should be done. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kane. Also very prompt in finishing. Councillor Chisholm.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I hope you'll bear with me while I speak tonight. I'm struggling a bit with my eyesight today, so I might be a bit slow, so please forgive me, because I do want to participate in the meeting if I can. What I want to do is speak in support of the budget, and the particular thing I want to talk about is in support of the welfare rights budget that's before us tonight. And in particular, I want to talk about the way that the Council has protected the welfare rights budget in a very difficult year. It's not got statutory funding, and the Council's had a loss of income year after year, and we've protected what I think is a nationally important essential service, and I think we should acknowledge that we're doing that to support people during this cost of living crisis. Can you close that bit down? Sorry. So the context, or the national context of this, is the failures of our national benefit system. So over the last few years, about £15 billion of benefits remain unclaimed. Just last week, there was an announcement about the statistics about the renewal of disability benefits. And just last year, 21,000 people on disability benefits had their benefits stopped because of a paperwork issue. That's a massive increase in those kind of paperwork disruptions. And it's very clear that the benefit system is much harsher and much more complicated than it needs to be. And the Welfare Rights Service in particular makes a big difference to our population and helps people to navigate an otherwise very difficult to use system and protect, as well as can be done within the benefit system as it is, their incomes. So last year, I think that about £20 million was raised in benefits income as the result of the work of welfare rights for Newcastle residents. £20 million. That's mostly because of the people who receive benefits, tends to be spent in our communities and in local services, and so has an impact on the city beyond what the amount of money may suggest in other contexts. So another thing I think that I want to acknowledge that the Welfare Rights Service does is it supports other services in the city, because the access to benefits is the rock that all sorts of other services rest upon. For example, our very good carers centre in Newcastle is able to do its work because the staff are not disrupted by doing complicated benefits issue with their service users. And there are many other instances of that. So it's a very important bit of our infrastructure in the city. And I'm very pleased it's been protected this year in a very difficult year. Sorry, Lord Mayor, I will get better at this through time. It's not easy. So I just want to tell my story as a service user who used the welfare rights services this year. So I suffered infection that meant that I had to have open heart surgery. I lost most of my eyesight and had a near fatal bout of sepsis out of the blue, unexpected, the support that I've had from City Council services has made a massive difference to me. One of the things about, for example, claiming benefits is that it's very complicated, disability benefits, and it's also a very unpleasant thing to claim, because what you have to do is do a lot of work to demonstrate how disabled you are, how unable you are to do things. It was really hard and demoralising thing that I wasn't able to do on my own, and I had excellent support from the Welfare Rights Service, and I know that that is replicated all over the place and is a really valuable contribution to our city. And then I think the other thing I want to mention is that the benefit system keeps ratcheting up and getting more difficult to use. And so just this year, about 42,000 people who were in receipt of disability benefits, personal independence payment, had their money stopped because of a paperwork mistake. The number of people suffering those kind of disruptions to their essential income has really dramatically gone up. In 2017, there were about 7,000 of those people. Now there are about 40,000 of those people. So the benefit system is getting harsher and more difficult to navigate. And we have a system of sanctions in the benefit system that is an unprecedented system of extrajudicial punishment introduced by the coalition government that means that many people have arbitrary, random and difficult to challenge decisions taking away essential income. It's not really in the public domain, but it's a very significant issue. It's important in our city, and here at least, because we have an excellent welfare rights service, people do have somewhere to turn. So I think that's a great service, and I want to support the budget. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Chisholm, for those very human comments on the budget proposals before us. Councillor Lovett, to be followed by Councillor Copley and Councillor Donnelly. Thank you, Councillor Lovett.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. When I heard Councillor Frew speak, I thought I saw the clouds breaking for a moment. Throwing in a few buzzwords like digital and transformation, it might sound like progress, but then every year I stand here and nothing really changes. That black cloud, which I've mentioned for the last 5 years, is still sitting over Newcastle. You stand there and you blame others for the situation you are in. Tell us that when Labour is in power, that the cuts will be reversed. But actually, when you think about it, in reality, it's Labour who make the choices in this chamber. You turn down our amendments, and then at some point in the future, we actually see them appear in your budget. We live in a city where quick fixing, breakdowns and failures are the result of lack of investment. They're the choices that you make. From what I see, officers working round the clock, answering emails during the weekend and out of hours just to stand still. Officers who we worked with for years and years seem to be leaving in their droves. Who moved my cheese comes to mind. The Blue Badge scheme is a European-wide scheme which provides a range of parking benefits for disabled people who travel either as drivers or as passengers. The badge can be used in any country in the European Union and in some other European countries as well. There are set criteria for applying for a blue badge. This can be found on the Newcastle City website, and there are around 9,200 in circulation. From the 1st of July 2021, you decided that blue badge holders were required to pay for their parking in both off-street and multi-storey car parks. Badge holders are given an additional hour free parking after their parking's expired to ensure that they will have enough time to return to their vehicle. Parking in on-street bays for disabled blue badge holders, yes, it does remain free of charge, but these are really dangerous for disabled people to use, and some with significant problems with breathing and walking find it very difficult to walk those distances. Just as a matter of interest, one of our neighbouring councils does offer free parking, Gateshead, just across the water. Something to take in mind. I would urge the council to support our amendments. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lovett. Councillor Copley.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. In 2010, the Lib Dem Conservative coalition made massive cuts to local government funding, and since then, those cuts have gone on year after year after year unabated. And here in Newcastle, that means that over those years, we've lost approximately 341 million in total. That's extraordinary. It's disgusting. The result of this is that each year we've had a huge reduction in the funds available to the council to run our services, many of which are crucially vital to the residents of this city, as you've heard tonight. Each year it becomes harder and harder to comply with financial requirements placed upon us through the impact of government decisions and the continued commitment they have to pushing their programme of austerity. That programme is causing real hardship to residents in the city. We've seen an overall increase in the numbers of people experiencing poverty and hardship. In the most recently published North East Child Poverty Commission e-newsletter, it stated that a report published last week by the Joseph Rowntree Foundation found 53% of children in the North East are living in households below the minimum income standard, MIS, very aptly named. The minimum income standard is described as what most people think is needed in order to live with dignity in the UK. Not hand to mouth, but in dignity. It's about more than just food, clothes and shelter. It is also about having opportunities and the choices available to participate in society as fully as you wish. The evidence in the report shows that child poverty is rising at an unprecedented rate nationally, and quite frankly, that is a damning indictment on the government and their policies. We are incredibly sad to see that rise in the North East. There's nothing inevitable about poverty. It doesn't have to be this way. Continuation of the current government policies is continuing to impact on every one of us, trying to do the best we can to deliver high-quality services for our babies, children, young people and their families. This year in my portfolio, Growing City, we had to achieve savings of £3 million whilst ensuring that we can still maintain our statutory duty to provide for our children and young people in the city. That's £3 million less than we have had this year. It's almost unbelievable. Robbing Peter to pay Paul, living hand to mouth, it's not acceptable. We've had to work creatively to identify solutions to meet the requirements this year to set the budget, including reshaping some services, working hard to secure any available funding, and developing our partnership arrangements with the voluntary sector and others in the city to maximise the resources available for our children, young people and their families. Year upon year, when we are faced with the damaging impact of government funding cuts on the services we provide to residents, it's becoming an almost impossible task to find adequate funds to set a budget that can deliver the core of what we know is needed. Despite the challenges and difficulties, though, I've mentioned, I would like to thank Councillor Frew, colleagues, partners and all officers involved in contributing to and working through the huge task of budget setting. It's not been easy, but I do think that we finalised a budget that addresses our key priorities within an extremely difficult set of constraints placed upon us. We urgently need a fairer local government funding settlement, and one of the things we are working hard to do to address issues within the city is the development of our economic inclusion strategy, but also, most importantly, the anti-poverty strategy, which we will be launching very soon. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Copley. I'm going to call on Councillor Donnelly next, to be followed by Councillor Ion and then Councillor Taylor. And just before Councillor Ion gets up to speak, I'm sure Council would want to join me in thanking Councillor Ion for the support and aid that he delivered to earthquake victims in the countries affected by the earthquake. Thank you. Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Firstly, I am pleased that the Council has not opted for the maximum council tax increase, albeit, unfortunately, it is still increasing year on year. On a positive, further to last year, we are seeing some changes that were requested by independent councillors to bring back school crossing patrols across the city. Whilst this is not universal yet, it is a step, albeit in the right direction. It is, however, difficult to understand the Council's previous policies of large capital spend. In many, we are not seeing the benefits that were promised to the taxpayer. Northern Rock Tower was purchased for £22 million. The outstanding debt is £18.9 million. Eldon Square, since 2001, a total of £87 million has been spent. The current debt is £72.5 million, and the current value is £29 million. My residents don't understand and never will. In the current council leader's own words, quote, "We have to invest money wisely and to ensure we provide the best services to our residents in this city. Then, of course, there is the Civic Centre. at a total cost to the taxpayer at 45.3 million. With that in mind, we have the council investing in a 4-star hotel, the Crown Plaza, and this has had 30.8 million of taxpayers' money to date. Only 2.2 million has been repaid, and none of the loan is due to be repaid until the hotel is sold. In August of 2020, the council stated the pandemic has had a huge economic impact on this country, and this is just one example of how the council is trying to protect the financial interests of the city. Read. The council went on to say that the loan of an additional 5 million for the Crown Plaza Hotel has come from surplus cash balances and was backed up by the authorities' cash reserves. Now, bear in mind cash reserves. All of the above has been done to protect frontline services, and yet this evening, sadly, there are further cuts to staff in this organisation. And we are not to forget that whilst I admit I have spent the cash reserves, or at least committed them at every council meeting, at a cost, at the moment, the cost of living crisis, we need to invest money wisely. So we are selective when we use council reserves. It is just a shame it is done so for a 4-star hotel instead of the hard-pressed public. Could the council please commit tonight to stop playing Monopoly with taxpayers' money? I support Amendment 3 by the opposition to reinstate free blue badge parking. This is an unnecessary charge on the most vulnerable in society, and we should aim tonight to remove this unfair tax. Furthermore, we need to look at other local authorities and plan from today the next budget. Northumberland County Council consults with all group leaders throughout the year. We are in unprecedented times, and we need to work together for the benefit of all our residents in this city. And Lord Mayor, forgive me, I will end as I should have started by thanking the staff of this council for putting together the budget, and also, to be fair, to thank the councillors for working towards the budget, because I do accept that we are in very difficult times at the moment. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Ion.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. As Vice Chair of the Finance and Budget Monitor Scrutiny Committee, my recommendation is to approve the budget for the upcoming fiscal year. However, before I do so, I would like to address the issue of the budgetary cuts imposed on us by the central government. These cuts have presented us with significant challenges, as it had to be carefully scrutinized on each item in the budget to ensure that we can continue to provide the essential services our community relies on, whilst also being financially responsible. Despite these challenges, I am confident that this budget is both balanced and responsible. We have to make some difficult decisions, but I'm pleased those decisions were made in a way that minimizes the impact on our most vulnerable service users. We have to recognize the focus on the Council on finding efficiencies in our operations. We are constantly scrutinizing several areas where we can streamline our processes, reduce costs, and improve service delivery. Council officers are constantly looking to implementing new technology solutions that can help us automate many of our administrative processes, freeing up staff time to focus on more valuable tasks. I would like to recognize the efforts that were made by the Cabinet members and the officers to maintain and extend the Council Tax Support Scheme, which would offer significant discounts to more and more residents who need this most. I want to emphasize that whilst we have to make some tough decisions, we have done so with the best interests of our residents in mind. This budget proposal is both ambitious to deliver on the three key overarching priorities and also being fiscally responsible and ensuring that we are making the most of every pound. In conclusion, I would like to recommend the approval of the budget proposal for the upcoming fiscal year. As we are faced with unprecedented challenges due to the cost of living crisis, inflation, international energy crisis, and poor governing from the central government, I am confident that this budget proposal is a responsible and balanced and will allow us to continue providing the essential services that our residents rely on and to make sure our city is developing and thriving. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ion. I think we have Councillor Taylor next, to be followed by Councillor Keynes and Councillor Stone. Thank you, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Before I start my prepared speech, I have to come back on the comments made by Councillor Greenhoff and remind you that it was this Labour Council who, when they took control in 2011, abandoned the proposal to have a dedicated My Place Youth Centre in the city centre, which would have been a superb asset for our young people. And I'm sure my Lib Dem colleagues who were on the council at the time, will never forgive them for that betrayal of our young people. As always, we recognise the financial difficulties facing the council and the Tory government's failure to provide local councils with the funding needed. However, we remain highly critical of Labour councillors for failing to push forward with the measures we have suggested in the past for making savings, for example on energy efficiency and shared services. In my speech in the budget in 2014, I suggested reviewing every service to see if it's achieving the desired outcomes, if it's being provided in the most efficient and cost-effective way, whether there is any duplication, and whether efficiencies of scale can be achieved by working with partners in other councils, schools, the voluntary sector, local businesses and others. And every year since then, I have again pointed out the huge savings that are being made by other councils who were prepared to share services. Each time we've been told that there are no obvious opportunities for shared services and that the millions of pounds of savings we suggest can't be achieved. Yet other councils have done exactly that. In the last 9 years, some progress has been made, for example with Collaborative Newcastle and Intermediate Care. But overall, the move towards shared services has been painfully slow and needs to gain some real momentum, as it does have the potential to save a huge amount of money. Perhaps with the devolution deal and the improved relationships between the councils involved, we will start to make shared services a reality. Looking at the budget proposals for adult care this year, I remain supportive of the measures to make support more focused on the individual and to look for support within their local community. But I do have concerns about whether the proposed savings can be made without reductions in services. As replies to the consultation made clear, there is a risk to the Council's approach, which I'm pleased to see that officers have acknowledged, and that is in expecting the voluntary and community sector to play a bigger part in supporting our residents. Connected Voice have made it clear that the voluntary and community sector is facing a perfect storm of challenges at present. VCSE organisations are doing their best to focus on provision of basic essentials for residents, such as food, clothing, warmth, access to digital services and technology, and crisis support. They also point out that there has been a drop in the number of people volunteering for various reasons, including people needing to work more hours or help with family childcare, so less time to volunteer, and people not wanting to claim much needed travel expenses out of a sense of pride. In addition, the VCES sector has seen the impact of increased severity and complexity of mental health issues amongst service users, staff and volunteers, and the impact of staffing shortages has meant many staff and volunteers have been unavailable due to sickness or isolation periods. The VCSE sector plays a vital role in supporting those people who are more vulnerable, less likely to access mainstream services, and who have multiple and complex needs. They are a vital partner in improving the lives of Newcastle residents, and the sustainability of these services is essential if the inequalities gap is not to widen further, and if the Council's ambitions on community support are to be met. Longer term and core funding is the way to address this need, and I'm therefore delighted to support our Amendment 5, which would put an extra £224,000 into a voluntary sector capacity fund to be drawn down over the course of the financial plan to bolster expenditure in the Newcastle Fund. The Liberal Democrat councillors have always questioned the efficacy of the Great North City Fund, which lacks robust evaluation of impact. The fund has been projected to run dry previously, but continues to maintain a healthy balance. Other funding streams could support the aims of the fund, but there is nothing comparable that could bolster the capacity in the voluntary sector, so we believe this is a much better use of available funding. Briefly, as a ward councillor, I must also raise my concern about the continuing failure to tackle the horrendous state of our roads and pavements. In the last year, a cyclist in my ward was seriously injured, hitting a pothole that had been previously patched and had broken down again. If we want to increase active travel, we must find a way to make our roads and pavements safe and accessible. It really is living in cloud cuckoo land to assume the problem could be solved by an incoming Labour government, and we need a more realistic approach. Lord Mayor, as always, we have put forward sensible, financially responsible and costed amendments and have explained how the Liberal Democrats would have a different approach to Labour. I'm proud to support our amendments.
Thank you very much, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Keynes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I want to talk a bit about the background context against which this budget has to work. And I draw colleagues' attention to the Marmot Review, Fair Society, Healthy Lives 2010, and Marmot 10 Years On 2020, which identified local government as a pivotal partner in addressing the social determinants of health inequalities and indicated the links between health and wealth and demonstrating that huge savings downstream evidenced in improved life chances. I talk about health because when we talk about poverty, poverty impacts on health. Health is closely linked to the conditions in which people live, in which they are born, in which they grow, live, work and age, and the inequities in power, money and resources, the social determinants of health. If we look at an example of the inequities of power, the North East Child Poverty Commission identified deductions from a universal credit as implicated in plunging families ever deeper into poverty. The government is clawing back over £4.5 million per month in the North East from deductions from families' universal credit. Deductions are commonly for repayment of a universal credit advance, necessary usually to survive the 5 weeks wait for the first universal credit payment. This accounts for over 50% of all deductions. If we look at the Joseph Rowntree Foundation's very recent report, Guarantee Our Essentials, Reforming a Universal Credit, they point out that a single adult receives £85 per week and argue that the report argues that an adult needs £120 per week just to cover essentials. The report also talks about 90% of households receiving a universal credit are actually going without essentials like food, light utilities and vital household goods. In contrast, Newcastle City Council's welfare rights work has led to, and this is something that I think Councillor Chisholm pointed to, has led to over 19,000 households gaining over £20 million in unclaimed benefits. And this money circulates back into the local economy. Welfare rights has also helped 3,500 residents to write off problematic debt of nearly £1.5 million. As Marmot indicated, the conditions in which people live impacts their health, their life chances. So it's good to see that the council has been able to prevent 4,500 cases of homelessness with no use of bed and breakfasts, while Active Inclusion's multi-agency panels support residents facing complex challenges in their lives through linking advice, support, social care, health and safeguarding. The Joseph Foundation report states that we cannot always deal with what life throws at us on our own. We need a system that supports us to afford essentials while we get back on our feet. I recently joined our street sleepers team as they toured the city centre, checking on those people who continue to street sleep, providing advice and assertive support around health and other needs. An example of how we acknowledge the complex challenges people continue to face, but we are able to provide effective support when needed. I also volunteer at the City Food Bank, and it's clear people are struggling with the crisis we're living through. However, needing food often indicates other needs, and I've seen the difference informed and targeted support has made to people in giving them a sense of worth, as well as ensuring they have sufficient to eat and are helped to remain in their home and pay their bills. Families' ability to access food directly impacts on children's health and education progress, and we have acknowledged that this is an urgent priority through funding an expanded free school meals offer. We are also ensuring that 4 to 10-year-olds are starting their school day properly through working towards a breakfast club in every primary school by 2026 in partnership with Greggs. Our community and voluntary sector provide vital support services, and they're often the social glue in our communities and are an early safety net when people are in difficulties. And we acknowledge that through our 500,000 we have invested in this vital sector. As in 2010, so in 2020, Marmot reported that inequalities in poor health and life chances harm individuals, families and communities and are expensive for public finances. They are unnecessary. Our work as a council in tackling poverty via supporting access to food, claiming benefit entitlement...
Could you wind up, Councillor Keynes?
I'm just winding up, Lord Mayor. And supporting people to retain their homes are an acknowledgement that the more intervention and support we can provide upstream, the better the life chances of residents will be downstream. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Keynes. Councillor Stone to be followed by Councillors Gray and Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Deputy Lord Mayor, I shall speak briefly on Opposition Amendment 6 about the future of the Allendale Road site. The opposition is aware of unease amongst staff who currently work there about whether there is actually a plan for how the council intends to retain and reaccommodate services currently provided from the site. In addition to being a welfare site for neighbourhood services crews in the east of the city, the depot accommodates the council's stores for the repairs and maintenance function, and the office block has accommodated social work teams, fostering services and community coordination staff. We're aware of cabinet reports on changes to the delivery model for the stores service have been pulled at the last minute, so we are unclear about how the envisaged hybrid shared service model will work, and presumably Councillor Frew is also somewhat unclear on this issue. The unions are understandably concerned about their members' interests. A lot of staff working Allendale Road in crafts roles live nearby in Byker. We know there are doubts about whether other sites will be able to accommodate the stores and their stocks. The opposition is well aware of the long delays experienced by tenants across the city waiting for repairs and maintenance to be carried out, but we're not convinced that moving the existing repairs and maintenance stores to an unspecified format in an unspecified location will enhance the efficiency of delivery of repairs and maintenance call-outs, particularly to Byker residents who are already waiting weeks or months for repairs to be done. More information is needed about what we might call the convenience of neighbourhood service operatives in the east of the city who use this site for welfare. The council deserves to let people know who live around the Allendale Road site know more about what their intentions are for the site. It's possible there is not a long-term need for the site and it could be redeveloped, but if the council intends to demolish and redevelop it, its neighbours in Byker deserve to know. If they plan to leave it boarded up with steel shutters, as the council has done nearby at Margaret Collins' house, its neighbours in Byker also deserve to know. For these reasons, the opposition is calling for the council to delay the closure of the Allendale Road site by 1 year to allow for an options analysis to be undertaken and full consultation with stakeholders. We would fund this by a 1-year reduction in the transformation reserve, well within its scope and well within its envelope, repaid by a one-off reduction in uncommitted spending in year 2. And we know this is a sensible option because which is exactly what the council ended up doing when we proposed exactly the same thing for the future of the Brunswick site. We're giving the leader of the council, who is giggling over there, and his colleagues the opportunity to do the right thing by his constituents in the Allendale Road workforce, the trade unions, and all those tenants in the city who want to see an effective and responsive repairs and maintenance service. Do the right thing by reviewing your plan to close the facility by supporting Amendment 6. I trust the people of Byker will be watching carefully tonight on how the council votes on this amendment before they vote tomorrow. I have one other thing I want to comment on, if I may, Lord Mayor, Deputy Lord Mayor, in response to Councillor Keynes' comments. In regard to Budget Proposal 12, That people may not be aware of which one that is, but it's the one which reduces funding for homelessness responses by £185,000, along with some mealy-mouthed words about working to co-produce a service model that continues to be outcomes-focused but can be delivered more cost-effectively. If we unspin that, Deputy Lord Mayor, this sounds to me like a lot like a Labour administration seeking to cut funding for road sleeper services. Now, the opposition is watching the administration closely on this particular issue too. We invite you to confirm whether you believe the Council's public commitment to having achieved zero rough sleeping by 2022 has genuinely been met, or whether you simply rebranded it as functional zero in a cynical paper accounting exercise. We invite you to reflect on whether voting to cut funding for homeless services as people to rough sleepers and homeless people is really what motivated you to stand for election, and if it wasn't, have a think about why you voted for it tonight. Thank you, Lord Mayor. Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Sheriff. I'll be rather cheeky and use this opportunity to put on record my thanks to the players and staff of Newcastle United in reaching the final of the League Cup. It was obviously disappointing to have won, but as Newcastle United fans, we've only ever demanded a team that tried, never won that won. And it's certainly something that's incredibly special for me as a born and bred Geordie to have been at the semi-final that sent the team to Wembley along with councillors Durant and Barnes and what would have been my granddad's, the biggest Newcastle United fan you ever met, 90th birthday, a really special day for me. Now to the matter at hand. Sheriff, no budget is set in isolation and must be viewed in its wider context. And Sheriff, that context is rather depressing. We as a council are setting a budget at a time in which certain vegetables are being rationed in supermarkets, and we're still feeling the effect of the Trussonomic gamble that the Tory government played with the British economy at the end of last year, which I'd say rather grotesquely is something which Truss is now trying to rewrite the history of. Perhaps the words of our recently appointed Honorary Freeman of the city wouldn't look all like that place in a piece from Truss in the Telegraph. But I'll blame it on the sun that didn't shine. I'll blame it on the wind and the trees. I'll blame it on the time that was never enough. I'll blame it on the tide in the sea. But Lord Mayor, I'll blame it on the dangerous rhetoric-led politics that has saddled the country with £40 million burden, sent inflation and interest rates through the roof and the value of the pound through the floor. Millions were left to pay more each month in inflated mortgages and bills. This is coupled with almost 13 years of underfunding and cuts of local government, starting during the Tory Lib Dem coalition and carrying on through the Tory years of government. In that context, I think it is rather remarkable that we are setting a budget which is filled with aspiration for our city at such a challenging time. Our homelessness prevention, which Councillor Stone is continuing to talk down and make glib comments about as no surprise to anybody in this chamber, involving young people and deciding which grants are funded through the Youth Fund, giving our young people a real stake in the activities that are aimed at them. Protecting our welfare rights is so well put forward by Councillor Chisholm, and something which is so important to our residents, and I know Councillor Kane loves a prop, helping residents through the cost of living crisis. This outstanding work of this council on the climate crisis and the net zero agenda, which for the third year in a row, Newcastle has been recognised as one of the world's leading cities for tackling climate change. We retained our Grade A status from the international climate change research provider CDP, making us one of 19 places in the UK and 122 worldwide to hold this accolade. A massive thanks has to go to council staff, officers and partners for their hard work in retaining this status. We've had a youth climate summit, which has heard from one of the generations that will be most impacted by the climate change challenge, with a youth climate mandate for the city being established. The declaration of a biodiversity emergency in 2022 and the commitment of council to protect and restore the natural environment, which will all help mitigate against the impacts of severe weather events such as flooding and extreme heat. Which, Lord Mayor, takes me to Amendment 2. Climate Change Committee, the change of that to a scrutiny committee has already been through Constitutional Committee. I think we should have a look at the terms of reference and see how we can make that most efficient, but I don't see the added value in changing the committee to a scrutiny committee. And I think looking at how we can change the committee within its current form would be a much more better use of time rather than carrying on the path that Councillor Kane would prefer us to take. And Sheriff, the so-called Levelling Up agenda has proven to be nothing more than spin and clever marketing, the trademark of Rishi rhetoric. This additional money is presented in a way that pits council against council, much needed project against much needed project. This way of funding local government does nothing but serve the short-term interests of the Tories and not our communities. The basics of local government shouldn't be funded by money doled out on the whim of the latest Prime Minister, of which we had 3 in the past year, Chancellor 4 in the last year, or local government secretary, again, 4, well, 3 with a Michael Gove throwback. Well, actually, even, Sheriff, the local government, the department doesn't even mention local government anymore. Something which I think is a prime example of the contempt that this council and others in local government are held in by this Tory government. Our country and our city have extraordinary potential, but 13 years of Tory failure are holding us back. We need a government with a long-term plan that shares the aspiration for our city that this council has. Hopefully that transformational, aspirational Labour government is not too far away. I commend the budget to council. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gray. We have Councillor Mitchell next, to be followed by Councillor Williams and Councillor Campion.
Deputy Lord Mayor, I was not planning to speak tonight, but I have to respond to Councillor Greenhoff's misrepresentation of the Newcastle Independence Group on the Outer West Pool position. We backed the bid, we wrote in support of the bid, and Councillor Smith even wrote to the Levelling Up Minister urging them to support the bid. Can I just say, it was the independent councillors who met throughout the summer of 2020 to reopen the pool, which had already been decided by the council and JLL that was never going to be reopened. This has left the Outer West no swimming facilities since 2020. JL said there was no money in swimming, and yet a Labour administration who say they do not believe in privatisation are happy to see this state-of-art leisure facility handed to a private company which divert profits to their Greenwich facilities, though there is still a need to bridge a shortfall by asking Sport England to help. If GLL could not make a profit from the old pool, how could we make sure that they can run this pool in profit? My concern has always been in an area which is family orientated. How do we encourage children and youths to enjoy swimming? I believe we could have aimed higher and had child-led facilities such as waves and slides. Asking for a swimming pool to appeal to families has clearly been misunderstood by Councillor Greenhoff, and I will never support the pool being in an organisation that ran down and got rid of the West Denton original pool. Our leisure facilities should be run for the community, not for profit. I also like to add, money would be well spent on play facilities in the Denton and Westerhope ward, but this would mean to stop developing on all the fields in the ward as promised by Councillor Greenhoff in his election leaflets. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mitchell. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I'm happy to support the budget proposed and keen to highlight the achievements and progress we are making. We've done well with our net zero progress, as recently highlighted, and we've shown that emissions can be reduced and help with the health of our population. As a vibrant and cultural sporting city, our spirits and hopes and dreams have been raised by the success of Newcastle United. I have to mention them too, under their recent management of Eddie Howe. It shows what a city can do when you all work together as a team. The newly and recently opened Blake Law Sports Hub is a welcome addition to the leisure facilities available across the city and fits well with the forthcoming provision of Bullocksteads and the Outer West. It provides a place to meet, improve health and well-being, and a warm and welcome space for residents to enjoy. Our Place Directorate is working to create cleaner, green and healthier spaces and places across our city, most importantly in our neighbourhoods. We're delivering school streets to make journeys to school safer and healthier. 4 are in place and there's more in the pipeline. Residents I listen to are pleased with the response to the issues they raise. Tom saw a trip hazard addressed within hours. Christine saw a fence fixed within days. Agencies work together to support victims of ASB and prevent further outbreaks. We are cleaning up the mess of 13 years of austerity, a political choice brought upon us by the Conservatives and Liberal Democrats. So thank you, but no thanks, Councillor Ferguson. We continue to progress and achieve in this city, and long may that be the case.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. That's to be followed by Councillor Campion, then to be followed by Councillor Sathian and Jason Smith.
Thank you, Sheriff. I want to start, actually, by saying how disappointed I am in colleagues to the left of the chamber that they've decided to, once again, bring up the government which took office when I was a mere 12 years old. Of course, if we want to talk about the distant past, like when Labour were last in government, I'd like to remind them of the situation they decided to leave behind, and in the words of their own former Treasury Secretary, Liam Byrne, there's no money left. It seems you really can't trust Labour with the economy. Now, let's be clear here. The opposition has put in 9 very sensible amendments that I hope will actually garner cross-party support. At the end of the day, who can really sit here and vote against giving kids who need it free school meals and giving more money to our voluntary sector? However, I am here to speak specifically about Amendment number 8. Yes, that's right. It's our annual hope that the administration will see the light and back a workplace parking levy. Let's not forget, there are many benefits to implementing a workplace parking levy. Firstly, it encourages people to use alternative modes of transportation, which can help to reduce traffic congestion and improve air quality. This not only benefits our environment, but fundamentally makes our city more livable and enjoyable to be in. Secondly, the revenue generated from the parking levy can be used to fund alternative transportation options, such as more bike lanes, improved public transport, or other initiatives that can encourage more sustainable modes of transport. This can help create a more balanced and equitable transport system, one that works for everyone, regardless of their income or transport needs. Thirdly, a workplace parking levy can also benefit businesses by reducing their parking costs. Employers who provide free parking spaces to their employees are often subsidising a significant expense, which can impact their bottom line. By introducing a parking levy, businesses can reduce their costs and reinvest the savings into other areas of their operations. Finally, a workplace parking levy can also help promote more responsible use of land. Car parks take up valuable space, often in prime locations, that could be better used for housing, retail, or other commercial developments. By discouraging the use of cars, we can help to create a more vibrant and sustainable urban environment in our city. Now, I would also like to highlight again our call that we should properly invest in our crumbling roads and pavements. As we all know, our roads and pavements are in dire need of repair. They are riddled with potholes, cracks, and other defects that make them dangerous and difficult to navigate, particularly for pedestrians and cyclists. While many authorities may be hesitant to borrow money to make such repairs, I believe that in doing so, it is not only necessary, but financially responsible. The fact is, if we do not invest in repairing our roads and pavements now, the cost of doing so in the future will only increase. Not only will the repairs become more expensive and extensive, but the cost of materials and labour will again continue to rise. Colleagues in Lib Dem-run Stockport and Portsmouth, for example, have done this to great success. Now, of course, investing in our roads and pavements will have numerous benefits for our community. For one, it will improve safety for all users. Crumbling roads and pavements are not only unsightly, but they also pose a significant hazard for pedestrians, cyclists, and motorists alike. By investing in repairs, we can reduce the number of accidents and injuries caused by our deteriorating infrastructure. In addition to improving safety, investing in our roads and pavements could have economic benefits. Our roads and pavements are critical to our city and they play a significant role in our local economy. Businesses rely on well-maintained roads to transport goods and services. They need safe, accessible pavements to attract customers. By investing in repairs, we can help ensure that our local businesses thrive and continue to create jobs and grow the economy in our city. Finally, investing in our roads and pavements will also help to improve the overall quality of life in our city. Safe and accessible infrastructure is critical to our daily lives, and it is essential for maintaining healthy and vibrant communities. By investing in repairs, we can help create a more livable city for all residents, regardless of the age of their age, ability or mode of transport. So I urge you all to consider the benefits. Let's all come together, let's vote on sensible amendments, and we can do this together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Campion. Councillor Sathian.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I am pleased to support the budget proposed by Councillor Frew. I would highlight the work being done in response to antisocial behaviour in the city and also work towards the cleaner, greener agenda. Antisocial behaviour can make people's lives miserable and ruin our communities. An extra 1.5 million is invested in tackling antisocial behaviour in Newcastle. I want to thank the effort of Councillor Story, Cabinet Member for Vibrant City, towards this. I want to point out some of the work around this, which I am really proud to speak here, especially being the member of Northumbria Police and Crime Panel. We have extra GRIP-funded police patrols being implemented to monitor city centre youth disorder. We continue to have detached youth work teams deployed in the city centre at weekends to engage with young people. The Better Lives Safer Communities Task Force has been deployed in the city centre and on transport networks over the past month. There has been large-scale positive engagement with the public and young people. The number of young people coming into busier areas of the city decreased throughout December. There is provision of intensive support for victims of antisocial behaviour. A dedicated victim support officer will oversee the entire victim support response. Newcastle Hub provides a safer space for young people to participate in activities and seek support. Neighbourhood wardens teams out in the community, patrolling the streets and keeping the public safe. As Councillor Williams pointed out clearly, our Place Directorate are working to create cleaner, greener and healthier spaces and places across our city, but most importantly, in our neighbourhoods. For example, in Blakelaw, the ward I represent, we have established a litter picking group and engaged with the community and is supported by the council. We work with primary schools to hold monthly litter picking to raise awareness among kids of the dangers of plastic to our environment, and also hold recycling assemblies in school delivered by the council's waste engagement team. I urge the council to support the budget proposal. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sathian. We'll come to Councillor Smith, and then we'll come to Councillor Hay, to be followed by Councillor Wooddick. Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. We are in challenging times with residents across the income spectrum facing a crisis in their family budgets. I welcome the administration's decision to opt for a council tax increase below the maximum permitted, and the Newcastle Independence Group will support the Lib Dem amendment for a council tax rebate to give further support to some of the most vulnerable in our community. The Newcastle Independence Group also welcomes the decision of the North of Tyne Mayor to avoid putting up council tax this year and also in previous years. The Police and Crime Commissioner, on the other hand, is handing a 9.75% hike in the police precept. Many residents have complained to me that they have not yet seen the benefit of last year's increase. The drones that the Commissioner promised at the last election still have not appeared, while Cleveland Police are using drones to tackle motorbikes in their area. Hardly surprising then that the Police and Crime Commissioner hasn't come to address this council this year. As Councillor Donnelly has mentioned, we are pleased that the council has reintroduced some of the school crossing patrols this council cut in the past. I will be campaigning for a crossing in Leamington to be reinstated. The Newcastle Independence Group will be voting on each of the amendments on their merits. Yes, this is the one group that have been listening to the debate and will decide how we vote on the debate. Deputy Lord Mayor, the Newcastle Independence Group cannot support the imposition of charges for parking in workplaces in the middle of a cost of living crisis. This tax will impact most heavily on those who live in areas not well served by public transport, such as the Outer West, and those who cannot work at home. The Newcastle Independence Group will support the amendment to reinstate the status of blue badges to make the city centre more accessible for disabled residents. Finally, Deputy Lord Mayor, I would like to put on record our thanks to the officers for the work that they have done in supporting the administration to deliver a budget against the most challenging backdrop. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. This has not been an easy process. No administration wants to make savings. The administration's aim in developing this budget was to prioritise the needs of our residents and to protect the most vulnerable members of our communities. I'm sure members across the chamber would agree with me that it's not our duty, sorry, that it is our duty to ensure... It's been a long night. I'll start again. I'm sure members across the chamber would agree with me that it's our duty to ensure that the council budget reflects the need to create a fair and inclusive economy that works for everyone. The administration's key themes of tackling poverty, getting the basics right, and achieving net zero run throughout the budget and have influenced our decisions. We believe that everyone deserves to live with dignity and respect. We understand that times are tough and many of our residents are facing difficult challenges. That's why we've prioritised funding our key services and have protected the Welfare Rights Service. We also recognise that we can't achieve our goals alone. We need to work collaboratively with our partners in our communities and the private sector to create an inclusive economy that benefits everyone. This budget complements our inclusive economic strategy, which will be launched next week, and outlines our vision for a fairer, more equitable city. Turning to my own portfolio, we have also ensured our welfare rights team is fully protected. This team plays a vital role in supporting our residents who are in need, and we recognise their hard work and dedication. By ensuring that they have the resources they need to do their job effectively, we are demonstrating a commitment to protecting the most vulnerable in our communities. We're exploring a new approach to managing our property portfolio with the goal of unlocking opportunities and generating income for the authority. We are currently undergoing a deep dive into the property portfolio to better understand it, and our aim is to create a resilient model that we can learn from and use to build a strong property team. While the property sector may currently face challenges, we believe that investing in this framework will ultimately yield positive results. We know that 2023 will be a difficult year for consumers and businesses across the North East, with the cost of living crisis expecting to lead to falling economic activity. We have, however, seen businesses continue to invest in Newcastle. Last month, we welcomed Leonardo, a global science and technology company, to Newcastle. Leonardo have pledged to create 200 quality jobs in the city and have joined businesses like Credera in making Newcastle their home. Deputy Lord Mayor, the budget is not just about numbers and figures, it's about people, and it's about creating a city that thrives, that works for everyone and protects the most vulnerable in our society. Please support the motion and the amendment. I'm not supporting your amendment, sorry about that. Please support the budget.
Thank you, Councillor Hay. Councillor Woodwick, to be followed by Councillor Byrne.
Thank you, Sheriff. Firstly, I'd like to thank Mark Nicholson and his staff. I know it's not true to say that he had hair at the start of this process, but the sentiment still remains about the hard work he and his staff have put in preparing this. My speech tonight may sound to many as one of no surprise. Again, I will ask similar questions I've asked year in, year out, and I'll hear the same answers from this Labour administration that we've heard year in, year out, to its total inability to deliver. We'll be told it was somebody else's fault. That, for example, rightly, in Killingworth Road, it was the gas people. For other parts of the city, it's going to be the fault, if not of the coalition 150 years ago, then sometimes with merit, the current failing Conservative government and the funding processes that have been outlined tonight that do nothing for local communities and only do for a foolhardy process that should be stopped and should be reformed. But the reality of this council is its inability to deliver, as I say. One only has to look down Northumberland Street and off the streets off Northumberland Street to see that. In the potholes, as Councillor Taylor pointed out, right across the city. And in my own ward, a simple thing such as blocking off of Hyde Terrace, something which my colleague Councillor Hall called for over 3 years ago. It still hasn't happened, and it makes a misery for residents in that locality. And so to the High Street within my ward, instead of invigorating a district centre, instead of actually pushing for a district centre that actually provides real jobs, has a real economic benefit, what do we get instead? A bus lane. Gee, thanks. With comprehensive consultation, we'd need to have buy-in from residents right up and down that North Road corridor. And what do we get? A 3-hour drop-in next week. It's symptomatic of a failing administration, of a failing Labour council. Delivering for residents, don't make me laugh. Sheriff, this side does agree. I'm getting his Councillor Hayes' problems here. This side does agree. The way to fund local government is not the stained and tainted council tax system we have to use thanks to this discredited Conservative government. The problem is this council so sorely falls short of what our citizens need. You'd think to hear the council tonight, the Labour councillors tonight, this council is A star. It so palpably is not. So clearly does it fall short of what our city deserves.
Thank you, Councillor Woodick. Councillor Byrne.
Thank you, Sheriff. Unsurprisingly, I support this budget, which makes the best possible use of our inadequate funding. The fact that we are able to provide decent services in these circumstances is a testament to the commitment and ingenuity of our staff. For example, in my own portfolio, staff have responded to the challenge of bulky waste by piloting pop-up recycling centres that, by increasing the opportunities to reuse and recycle, have provided a greener solution than traditional collection. Imagine what they could achieve with decent funding. Moving on to the amendments. Most of them concern my portfolio, and I note that the councillors opposite have added one on roads and pavements tonight, but they didn't actually table anything on that. However, Councillor Frew is moving the budget, so I won't go into detail on the amendments. So I think I must comment on a couple of them and on a couple of the suggestions. Firstly, amendment number 1, absolutely no. The safe and effective management of our tree stock is a priority, and rephasing means delaying. My tree report makes it absolutely clear why we cannot do this. Secondly, I have to correct Councillors Ferguson and Kane on Amendment 4. The way the bikeability service is funded and delivered is being reviewed. It is not being cut, so please don't misrepresent that again. On a positive note, I will respond on the suggestions that were made about...
Quiet.
Excuse me, Councillor Stone, I didn't interrupt you. No, it's not it is not in our budget papers to say that the bikeability service is being cut. The way it is being delivered is being reviewed, which will create savings. That does not mean the service is being cut. And I know you better than that, Councillor Stone. I know you know exactly what that means and the difference. Moving on to a more positive note, I'll respond to the suggestions re the workplace parking levy and energy saving. We are open to developing a workplace parking levy as part of our transport strategy and have asked staff to do preliminary investigation, although our emphasis is on improving the opportunities for active travel, including public transport, so that people can make a positive switch. And I think Councillor Smith commented on we don't want to further penalise people who have limited transport opportunities. However, we are willing to look at it, but there's not sufficient evidence of the likely revenue to include it in the budget. So that's why I would be rejecting that amendment. Similarly, with energy saving, as everybody's well aware, we've been working on reducing energy consumption and moving to alternative sources such as solar panels and heat pumps as part of our commitment to net zero and cost saving over many years. If the opposition has suggestions for additional behaviour change, I'd be more than happy to work with them, and they've made the point about thermostats tonight, that's fine. But we cannot put it in the budget when we don't actually have clearly thought out proposals with indicative savings. That's why I would be objecting to that one. I'm going to end with a comment on Liam Byrne, who is no relation. He made a stupid joke. Your party made a catastrophic error. You frequently remind us that you are the party of Beveridge. You are also the party of Keynes. He would have told you that austerity was not only cruel, it was stupid, bad economics, and we're all living with the consequences. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Well, I have reached the end of my list of those who had indicated that they wanted to speak. However, I did say at the beginning that I would ask other members to indicate if they wanted to speak before I went to those who had reserved the right to speak, which is Councillor Hall, and then the right of reply. So is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this motion? No. I will call on Councillor Hall then to take his reserved right to speak.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Councillor Byrne, 300,000 extra has materialised in the trees portfolio that wasn't there in the draft budget. So if we can't redirect it, then either the draft budget was unsafe or our amendment isn't. Simple as that. And I think the leader should be careful when he talks about capital investment, considering that in years 2 and 3 of this budget, medium-term financial plan, £160 million is committed, but with absolutely no clarity on what it's committed to. Could use half of that. That'd be good. Wouldn't get rid of the backlog, but it would go some way towards it. Anyway, Deputy Lord Mayor, I would like to thank officers, as Councillor Frew did. They put a lot of effort into this, and it is recognised the difficulty and effort that has to go into putting this together. Ultimately, though, I'm left with the feeling, once again, that Newcastle is being left behind. The Conservative government's self-obsession since 2015 means that critical support for local government has been constantly delayed. Brexit, Boris and bungled budgets mean that local government fair funding, business rate resets, health and social care integration, social care reform and many others have all fallen by the wayside, all of which disproportionately affect authorities like Newcastle. On top of that, council tax and business rates remain fundamentally broken and fundamentally unfair. Unless and until this is all fixed, every budget will continue to be a struggle.
Vote Labour.
However, for years, the council has been in managed decline. The Labour group has recognised this, hence the new administration, even if it's the same colour. Sounds oddly familiar. However, I may be slightly more hopeful. Talk of data integration, active analysis present significant opportunities, and we are very much open to talk of new ways of working and that desire for change. You could show that by supporting even one of our amendments, but I realise that might be too far at this stage. Whatever form it takes, we will positively engage and participate, but actions now need to match words for this new administration. In the meantime, our amendments show the Liberal Democrat priorities for our city: improving our budget position, protecting the environment, supporting vulnerable communities, and a surer start for children. On the environment, we commit £100,000 extra each year to local tree planting. We commit to full, rigorous scrutiny of the Council's progress on climate change, improving transparency and accountability. On the budget, we propose again the workplace parking levy, and it's nice to hear that Councillor Byrne is open to that. It could raise at least £1.4 million each year, and it would, which we could already be benefiting from. And additionally, we look to trial energy reduction targets to save money and show our commitment to greening the council. We would improve support for vulnerable families and communities with extra money for the voluntary sector, reducing council tax by 1% for the lowest income households, and by reinstating free blue badge parking, and by keeping local teams working, in this case in Biker. And finally, to support a strong start for children in this city, we commit to continue funding for the Bikeability programme, and we're talking about the funding, not the programme ultimately. And most crucially, we commit to certainty on free school meals for Newcastle's children. Deputy Lord Mayor, as colleagues on finance scrutiny will know, I could talk endlessly on fairer distribution of our investments, capital spend on highways, or office accommodation that's running at a loss. I urge the new administration to take their opportunity for change. Otherwise, sure as the tide on the Tyne, Newcastle residents will force change on you. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. I'll call on Councillor Frew to take his right of reply.
Thank you to Councillor Hall for a mature take on the debate. But I will have to address everything else that's been said. So first off, there is no assumption in this budget about any future change in government. As much as I would like to see one, I'm sure all of us would like to see one. I would challenge the opposition to show us where in the budget it says that. Two, I do need to deal with this. There is a legacy in Newcastle from Liberal Democrats in government. There is a legacy of the 5 years that you palled around with the Tories. There is a legacy of the one opportunity that your party has been in government. You had one shot, one opportunity. What did we get? Mum's spaghetti. The young ones get it. What we've seen from the Liberal Democrats' amendments is less than £1 million being moved around, and it's all 1 year money actually. £300,000 1 year, £225,000 1 year, £250,000 1 year. These are all minor changes, cleverly moving around money to try and do something slightly differently. Where is your proposal on roads? We've heard a lot about the state of roads. What are the Lib Dems going to do about it, other than sit there and be critical? What is their vision for the organisation? We heard Councillor Ferguson say early intervention. Has he not been reading the financial plans of our social services for the past 8 years? Shared services, again, an old idea, and we have done as much as we can there. Use less energy, again, a very old idea, and I'll come to that. And we've heard claims of salami slicing. Is real living wage salami slicing? Is reshaping our services across the medium-term plan salami slicing? I invite the opposition to show me what is salami. I also want to take up a couple of points from Councillor Mitchell. GLL is a non-profit. personally, I would be very, very upset if we did put our leisure services into a profit organisation. And frankly, that wouldn't be very good because pools don't maintain themselves. And I say this as a pool fan. Also, among with the leisure facilities, we are delivering a library and community facilities, which will be absolutely critical for the Outer West. That was not what the opposition, the independents had been pushing for. They were pushing for an Olympic pool. So, Amendment 1. We have genuine disagreement about priorities here. The administration believes that tree maintenance is a priority. However, the opposition seems to think the solution is more trees before maintaining the ones that we have. We fundamentally disagree with this, and the point that the opposition are trying to get at are some of the most expensive and difficult to look after trees, while they're also putting back maintenance. I can only call this approach naive. And also to say that we are planting an enormous amount of trees. I got to plant about 100 in my own ward just last month. Number 2, I have no great issues with the idea, but that's a decision for Constitutional Committee and Climate Change Committee. I understand those discussions have happened. 3, this is old ground. To repeat what was said throughout the consultation of blue badge holders themselves at the time, if it guaranteed places for them to park, it would be worth paying for. That is what drivers said themselves. Blue badge holders can park free of charge on street throughout the city, and they get an extra hour in our multis. We are committed to a welcoming and accessible city, and we are doing the work to try and ensure that. 4, there will be no impact, as far as I understand it, on bikeability. The £24,000 there is an operational cost, and this is simply about delivering it in a different way. There is funding that exists underneath that already. So this is not a cut of bikeability. Training should still be the same throughout the city. 5, the opposition are mistaken to think this is free money. Currently, Great North City Fund is committed to cultural events in the city over the next 2 years, which will leverage in 4 times as much cash from the North of Tyne Combined Authority. It's not just there for the pickings. 6, this is a pressing issue, and putting it off will not help. We have a new operating model for our stores, which has passed through Cabinet, and the building for children's social care is not fit for purpose. 7, I'm glad to see the opposition value our council tax reduction scheme. I'm very annoyed that they're not going to continue the hardship payments, which we think are very valuable. And they should be happy about the additional money we put into the council tax reduction scheme. Lord Mayor, the opposition have missed the big picture. Labour have focused on what matters most to residents.
To complete the full agenda? Correct. Is that what you're saying? Okay, is that motion seconded? Seconded. Those in favour of the motion? Against? Think we'd better have a vote? I couldn't tell. Can we have a vote? Is there anyone left with the ability to vote? I will come to those of you who haven't been able to vote. Could you put your hand up if you haven't been able to vote on that one and tell me whether your vote is yes or no or abstain on that? Councillor Patterson? Right. Councillor Williams? I can see another hand up there. Councillor Kingsland? I do apologise to Councillor Durant. I think I must need stronger glasses. I just didn't get the name right. Over this side, Councillor... Oh, another hand. Sorry, Councillor Story. Okay, fine, thank you. Councillor Keating? Right. Any more hands? I think that completes the vote. So the motion is rejected. The vote is no on that. So we will move to the votes, the named votes on each of the amendments in turn to the agenda item that we're dealing with, agenda item 7. And before we move to a named vote on each of the amendments, I want to ask John Softley, the legal advisor to Council, to advise Council.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Just to provide some clarification about the voting on the amendments, members will have seen that the second, third and fourth amendments all depend on savings that would arise only if the first amendment were agreed. Therefore, if the first amendment is rejected, then the second, third and fourth amendments must also fall. So if the vote on the first amendment is to reject it, then there'll be no vote on the second, third and fourth amendments. As I say, I hope that clarifies the position.
Is that noted by everyone? So I think what we've heard is quite clear. If the First Amendment is lost, then the second, third and fourth amendments will automatically fall and there will be no need for a vote on those amendments. But I'm going to ask, first of all, to go through the amendments for a vote, a named vote on each of those amendments. And I would ask you, if you are able to use Go Vote. If not, please raise your hand and I will come to you to take how you want to vote on that item. Right, so the first vote is, and this is a named vote, remember, on Amendment 1. Could I have indicate those? Are there any more votes to be had electronically? All those who need to indicate that they want their vote added in. I've got Councillor Keating. Councillor Pattinson? Right. Councillor Williams? Councillor Story? Right. Councillor Keating? Right. Anyone else that I'm missing? That means that the First Amendment is lost. So that means that on the basis of what Council were advised, the second, third and fourth amendments automatically fall. So there's no need for a vote on those. So we come to Amendment 5. If I could ask you to vote on whether you want to accept Amendment 5 or not. Are we finished with the electronic votes? Okay. Stick your hand up, please. Councillor Pattinson. Thank you. Councillor Williams. Councillor Story. Councillor Keating. Right. That amendment is lost. That amendment falls. So we're up to Amendment 6. If you could indicate how you wish to vote, either for or against that one, or abstain. Are we finished with the electronic voting? Are there any others who wish to put their hands up? Councillor Pattinson? Councillor Williams? Councillor Story? Councillor Keating? I really can't answer that question, but I'm sure somebody can. It's probably duff signal. Okay, I think, was that Amendment 6? Yes, beg your pardon. So that amendment is lost. We'll move on to the vote on Amendment 7. All those in favour or against or abstain, please indicate. Is that it electronically? Okay, hands up again. Councillor Keating? Councillor Story? Councillor Pattinson? No. Councillor Williams? That amendment is lost. So we're up to amendment number 8. And I would ask you to vote on that one. According to my numbers, that's it for the electronics. Any additions? Councillor Keating? Yes. Right. Councillor Pattinson? No. Councillor Story? Councillor Williams? Any more for any more? No, that's lost. We're up to amendment number 9. Could I ask you to indicate how you wish to vote on that? Any more electronically? No. Manual versions? Oh, and I thought you weren't going to put your hand up this time. Councillor Keating? Okay. Councillor Pattinson? No. Councillor Story? Councillor Williams? That amendment is lost. So finally, the council needs to vote on the original recommendations as in Councillor Frew's report to council. So could I put that to you, please? Any more electronic votes? No? Okay. Okay, hands up those who want to be added in. Councillor Stone? Fine. Oh, we'll believe that that's right. Councillor Keating? Right. Any more on this side? Councillor Pattinson? Yes. Councillor Story? Councillor Williams? Right. Okay. The original recommendations are carried. Now then, the motion to not extend the guillotine has been carried, so we need to deal with the remaining order of business. Oh.
Lord Mayor, I must protest about the way in which some of the substantive business for this meeting has been put together over the course of this year, and in fairness, creeping for a number of years. We have substantive items on the same agenda as the budget, yet we know that the budget is pretty much an indefinite article in its own right. We have in the Newcastle Charter that we must only have one strong recommendation, but it's there in black and white, that we must only have one cabinet report per meeting, and yet we have had multiple meetings with 2 cabinet member reports and at least 1, if not 2, meetings where there has been no cabinet member reports at all. And I appreciate this is probably something for a constitutional committee. I understand that, but we seem to be always running up against not having enough time to deal with these things. And I know the members opposite will talk about, oh, well, it's because you waffle on so much, but I think that doesn't answer the critical issue where we've run out of time for any motions and any reports.
Sorry, I'm struggling because there's so much noise going on. I'm struggling to hear, but I'm also struggling to hear what the point of order is.
The point of order, Lord Mayor, is that if you want to put it in firm terms, I do not believe that the Council standing orders have been followed with regard to having one cabinet member report per meeting. But on top of that, it's a general protest about the way that the meetings have been put together this year and for many years to give us enough time to deal with the things that residents want us to deal with. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Just before I ask
Deputy
the legal
Lord Mayor,
officer to respond to that, could I ask all members to note that they should not bang on the tables, because that makes it very difficult for anyone with a hearing impairment. Thank you very much. Legal officer.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Just to be clear about the position on the standing orders, Standing Order 10G says, so far as it is reasonably practicable, no more than one Cabinet member's annual report will be submitted to each ordinary council meeting. So there's not an absolute prohibition on having more than one Cabinet member report. Just to be clear about the standing orders position.
Okay, we'll move on to deal with the items that have fallen because the guillotine has fallen. Agenda item 8 was the members' questions. They've been orally replied to and circulated. Yeah.
Lord Mayor, just to confirm the position under standing orders again, where the question has not been commenced during the time allotted, a reply will be given in writing and circulated to members before the next meeting of the City Council.
Thank you. Thank you. So we then come to Cabinet members' reports. The report from Councillor Frew. How do you want this? Right. That's absolutely fine. Thank you for that, Councillor Frew. So that one is council agree to receive the report. So the next one is Councillor Byrne's report. Is your point the same, Councillor Byrne? You'll deal with any email requests for questions. Council agree to receive that report? Thank you. Appointments, or the appointments as set out on the supplemental agenda agreed? This is Councillor Stone's motion, agenda item 11, to be seconded by Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Stone? Defer. Okay. Young Carers Action Day, Councillor Kilgour. You want it moved tonight. Is it seconded? Thank you, Councillor Copley. Is the motion agreed? Thank you. International Women's Day motion, agenda item 13. Councillor Taylor, you want it dealt with tonight. Seconded? Seconded by Councillor Byrne. Is the motion agreed? Thank you. Agenda item 14, the notice of motion on the earthquake in Turkey and Syria. Councillor Ferguson for the motion. Deal with it tonight. Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Ion? Seconded? Okay. Is that motion agreed? Thank you. We've dealt with that one. Agenda item 16, Councillor Donnelly. You want it dealt... Sorry, I can't... Yes, I want it dealt with tonight if we have a named vote as well. Dealt with tonight with a named vote.
You need 10. You need
10 members. You need a quorum of members to agree to a named vote.
You need 10 members.
Is that enough? That's okay. We'll have a named vote on that. The motion on the one call strategy, Councillor Mitchell, seconded. Okay. Is the motion agreed? No. I'll take a named vote on that. If you could vote on your electronic systems, please. Are we finished with the electronic system? Anyone who hasn't been able to vote? Councillor Stone, your battery's run out. Pardon? Abstain. Right. Anyone else? Councillor Keating? Pardon? Abstain. Right. Over this side, Councillor... sorry. George? No. Councillor Story? Right. Councillor Williams? Right. That motion is lost. So the next meeting of council is going to be the annual meeting, which will be at 2 p.m. on Wednesday, the 24th of May. And I'd like to thank you all for your patience with me tonight. Thank you.